Continuing our FAQ series today. Got 3 out of 4 platforms up and going. Just waiting for the last one. A little windy today, but prayerfully it won't influence your ability to hear. Hopefully you all came off of the fast very well, and everything was ended up being great for you. We appreciate your presence on the day. Alrighty, I think we got everything ready to go. Just got to put something in the description on the podcast. We should be able to jump right into things. Uh, oh, okay. Alrighty. Let's go ahead and get into it. I think we got everybody up and going on all the platforms. So may the words of my mouth and the meditation of mine heart be acceptable in Yahweh's sight. He is our strength and our Redeemer. And it is in his name, which is his authority, that we pray, praise, proclaim, project, and protect this message. Amen. To everybody on TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, and the podcast. Shalom to everybody. Shalom. Peace be upon everybody. We give all honor and praise to the Most High. Once again, we give all honor and praise to the Most High for my wife, the Honorable Maya, who lives a life that's able to be honored. All right, I'll answer that in a second. Or maybe talk to you afterwards. But we thank the Most High for my wife, the Honorable Maya, who lives a life that's able to be honored. You can check her out on YouTube, TikTok, or website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish, not A&D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. Hey, hello, Wisconsin in the house. Little tater tot. We're actually going to be in Chicago and Detroit. You know, Wisconsin's, depending on where you are, Wisconsin's not too far from Chicago. So if you're interested in getting in contact with us, just check out our information on the website, on our link tree, and see if you can contact us if you're interested. Maybe you want to come out and say hello with us and spend some time. But we'll be in Chicago the 27th to 28th. We'll be in Detroit the 29th and the 30th. And we look forward to seeing everybody in that area, as well as many areas that we're trying to visit, as well as those of you coming to see us October 14th to the 16th. Prayerfully, we'll have something. We had to move locations, so prayerfully, we'll have some more information on that to you all very soon. And thank you to Marsha, Malcolm, Betty, Isabel, and Solomon. Daddy loves you very much. To those who are watching this for the first time, if it's your first time with many, if you are SOC, Yasnel, part of the diaspora, part of humanity, people who believe in the word, people who believe in sovereignty, people who just believe in listening and being righteous and treating people with respect. We thankful for each and every one of you across the board. And to Beverly, hello, Grand Rising, how you doing? To Sister Sharice, hello, Minister Tamara, to Calvin, I'm doing well. Acham Yashfa Hamashak, thank you. User 14, how you doing? You said you told your uncle, yeah. So I guess it depends on what your uncle is looking for, what he needs, or maybe you want to give him the haven't been led as we believe, something out of there. Maybe part 1, that'd probably be a great place to start, or something out of the FAQ series. I would think that might be a good beginning place. Hello, naturally MSQ. My wife is on. The Honorable Mind. Once again, check her out on TikTok, YouTube, or website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish. How you doing, babe? I love you very much. Thank you so much for being on. Sister Christine, Miko, Bounty, everybody, we thank you. We appreciate you. And those who are coming on even later. But once again, we're in our FAQ series. So frequently asked questions, and this is to let people know frequently asked questions concerning the Bible per se, based off of a book called "I'm Glad You Asked" by Dr. King Boa and Larry Moody. But it's we're not necessarily using that because our belief system is not 100% theirs, but we are utilizing and executing because it is something that's great apologetically to be able to go through. Apologetics is simply something that teaches us, or apologetics is something that we use to be able to defend that which we believe. How you doing, Sister Rhonda? How you doing, Roderick? Um, oh, okay. Hold on. I was trying to reach out to you, get you the link and stuff. I heard that you were saying you couldn't get on the class. I don't know what happened. We'll have the recording up, and we'll make sure that we send it to you. But I don't know what happened, so I apologize. I'll try to double check with you, text with you and stuff. Maybe if you can resend me your email just to make sure that I didn't put it in the system wrong or something like that. But we'll see what happened. But to everybody, thank you so much. And remember, the classes have started. So tonight, matter of fact, class is going to be Introduction to Herbalism, taught by the Honorable Maya herself. So we're thankful and grateful for everybody who wants to come on and listen in. Got a pretty big class. Actually, supposedly kind of have big classes for most of these, even though we didn't have everybody show up and everything. But Hebrew characters, I think we had a big show up. Sovereignty was all right, but hopefully everybody will be able to come on in. If not, make sure that you know that once we finish the class, no later than 12 o'clock p.m. Eastern New York time, the very next day, a Google Calendar invite the that same Google Calendar invite you got for the class. Underneath it, you'll see a recording for what came the night prior. If you ever want to go there, if for some reason you can't get there, just let us know. Well, if you want more information on the classes, all you got to do, since you're on TikTok, if you're on YouTube, if you're on Facebook, if you're on the podcast, all you have to do is look in the description box. How you doing, Sister Deborah? How you doing, Eugenio? Thanks for being on. If all you got to do for information, get in contact with us, just look in the description box with either the video or the episode. If you're on TikTok, once again, just go to where it says website on our TikTok page. We have a little bit more information about us where it says bio, but if you want to look at way more information, my wife has set up a link tree that's been up for a while. You just go on TikTok, click on where it says website, then you'll see something that says classes. Click on that. You can see the classes that are being offered. And all a lot of information, and then you can fill out a form if you like. Fill out the form, tell us which ones you want to take, or put a maybe there if you want. A yes, no, maybe you're taking some classes. Put the ones that you're interested in taking, and we'll get back to you if you want to go ahead, or you can contact us, text us, email, etc. Right? Donations we ask for donations to be able to take the class, just to let you know. But we can talk all that stuff through more, whether it's myself or somebody else. We'd be more than glad to be able to talk to you about it. So today, I want to focus, getting back into these frequently asked questions, this series. We want to focus today on culture. We talk a whole lot about culture, and culture is pretty much in every series we do. We're going to end up at least once having culture in the title of something. We're going to discuss culture pretty much every time we come on, because culture is very much so everything. A lot of the questions we get are going to be based off of culture. They're going to be based off of influence. How you doing, Cash? I'm doing well. Hopefully you're doing well as well. So almost everything we're going to deal with is going to be based off of culture, influence, right? You've been influenced by everything. There are some people that would try to get us to believe that they have not been influenced by anything. There are a lot of people who will say that your question, your comments, your concerns are not influenced by anything. You just came upon it in a vacuum, right? I don't need anybody to tell me anything, because everything that I got from myself. I don't need any higher power. I don't need to worry about a government. I don't need to worry about this. The problem with that is it's the same way that you say that you have a problem with the Bible because it's written by man. The same way that is that everything that you have received is written or spoken or felt or applied or interpreted, etc., by man. This is a problem with the whole I'm not influenced by anything. There's a problem with it, right? There's a problem with that. There's a problem with not recognizing that the way that your medicine is given to you is influenced by a family. If you don't believe me, usually what happens with doctors is that you have a doctor, and that doctor gave birth to a doctor, who gave birth to a doctor, who gave birth to a doctor, that gave birth to a doctor. And eventually you got what a family has put together. Oh, yeah, and thank you. Thanks, babe, for the reminder. Yeah, if you tap on the screen, if you'd like to be able to give any likes, gifts, anything like that, we appreciate it. We thank you in advance for you doing so. How you doing, Sister Bree? How you doing, Big Brother Thomas? So today we want to talk about culture because culture is influence. Period. This is why culture is important. This is why culture is something that we talk about. This is why culture is something. How you doing, Grind? This is why we scream it to the high heavens. Right? How you doing, Treese? We are all dealing with culture, right? Whether we want to admit it or not. The reason why you can comprehend the words that I'm speaking is because somebody taught you those words. There's a culture that tells you what each one of those words mean. Whether you know that in English it's not Anglo or Anglo, but it's English. It's Anglo-ish. It's not even Anglo. It's not even Anglo. How you doing, Sister Alicia? Is it Dr. Alicia? How you doing? Excuse me. Right? We are influenced. I was reminded today about plants, right? And plants grow. Now, if you talk to the plants or you play music with the plants, maybe you guys have experimented with that. You talk to plants, you experiment with plants. You play music for plants, etc. It's going to grow. You know how people say, you got to grow. You got to grow. You're not growing. You're not growing. I would actually speak a little different on that, because just because you are not being influenced by something positive, that doesn't mean you're not being influenced by something negative. I can take classical music, I can take hip hop music, I can take heavy metal music, I can sing with my messed up voice nowadays because I do so much talking, I can't really sing the way I used to. But I can, we can play jazz. I can. If you play jazz, I can take some Coltrane, I can take some McBride, I can take some Dizzy, I can take some Roy Hargrove, I can take some Wynton Marsalis, I can take whoever it is, and I can play it, and the plants will grow regardless of who I play, what I play, if there's cursing, and it will grow, right? Your growth is not always based off of great influence. And so a lot of things that we question are going to be based off of influence, right? If you, for example, are part of a culture that says that I speak English and I wish everybody spoke English, but you don't recognize that 40% of English is French. But you say you hate French people, even to the point to where I don't like French fries. Right? Remember that has happened a few times in American history. We don't even eat French fries. They don't call them a French fry. They call them American fry, even though French fries are not even something that were made in France, right? Nevertheless, though, right, we do this thing where I don't even like French fries. I don't even like French cut anything. It's American cut. It's American fries. The language that you speak, English, is 40% French. Hey, Grand Rising Minister Song. How you doing, Mo Desire? You said you had your plans 30 music a day. You take them outside in the rising also. How you doing, Sonia? Thanks for being part of the community. Since Deja said very true, you plant babies are thriving since you started talking and singing to them. Yeah, they grow and they're alive. Plants have personalities, believe it or not. Right? Like plants actually do things, and one plant might do one thing, and then you go to another plant, the other plant's doing something else, and you're like, that's weird, blah blah. Like plants are all based off of culture too. There's a culture you put a seed in. There's a culture that you put the water in. There's a culture that the soil has to be aerated or certain things. There's a type of environment that it needs to be around. It will thrive in or will not thrive in, right? But we're speaking a lot of things. So a lot of our questions, and of course, you can put whatever questions you like in the chat, or if you're on TikTok, maybe you want to use the Q&A box, just in case I'm not able to get to your question right away. But we don't recognize the culture and how much it influences. It influences everything. And so our lack of recognition that culture is influencing is something that we're not even recognizing when it comes to how we think, but also now how we question. So as a reminder, when we go through this, keep going through the series, this is part 10. We have these recorded on YouTube for those that want to catch up. You have to recognize and realize and remember, that you're dealing with culture, right? We are dealing with culture, and we're dealing with a lot of different things that come with culture. We're dealing with a lot of different things. And so your questions, right, are going to be based off that. My answers are going to be based off that. If we don't comprehend culture, we don't really comprehend what's going on. So going through some of these questions that we see, right? That's why when we talked about, does God exist? You have to first ask yourself, who is God? Right? And thanks again for the likes and shares. Any gifts or whatever, etc. Right? We appreciate it. Right. But if before we go into does God exist, we have to ask us a question like, who is God? What culture are you talking about when you talk about God? And nobody wants to have a discussion. If you see the word good, what does that mean? Right. We talked about some of these already, but God is not the same as Elohim or Elohim. It's not the same. So you're asking a question, not recognizing that you're asking a question saying, in my culture, you're doing the woman at the well thing. We are reading similar things, like, right? Yashua and the woman at the well have similar beliefs, but don't even agree on the direction that they should worship in. Don't even agree, they hate each other as a people, but at the same time say we're learning the same as a people. We've got a problem. And even if you're having a conversation there, and it's the same thing. We have people when they say, does God exist? When you bring God to me, you must comprehend that you're bringing something that is actually anti the Bible, right? We must recognize that when you bring God to the table, God is not in the Bible originally. Matter of fact, before we called it a Bible, there was no God in it. It was always Elohim, right? So we have a question. We have a question coming, and most people cannot receive, do not have an ear to hear, right? Because you're trying to feed me something that is not cultural, right? You know, it's you see what I'm saying, and how you doing, Tink Tucker? Where you have a lot, we have a lot to deal with, and we have a lot of growth to do before we can even dialogue in some of these questions. We're like Nicodemus. Yashra, you got it going on. You're the man. You're doing this. You're doing that, right? You're doing all these things. You're amazing. Blah blah blah. But in all those things that are going on, including the person that made the comment that obviously in the prison of their own mind, because obviously I don't even look like I would do that, but of course, people are doing that. You have to be in a position to recognize and realize that, like, we're having cultural dispute because we lack the ability to deal with these cultural indicators we've talked about, have cultural context, have cultural curriculum. How you doing, Brother Clem? How you doing, Cole? Brother Cole, we are missing out on a lot of stuff. We're asking questions. Once again, if you ask somebody about God, why is it that people who believe in Kemetic natures are talking about gods? Right? And by the way, if you get blocked on there, it's pretty difficult for me to be able to try and pull you back up. It takes a lot to be able to find somebody once they're in that section. So if I ever have a chance to, it might take me an hour, 2 hours just to be able to do that. So possibility it'll happen, but it might take a while. No disrespect, just it is what it is. But like when we're talking about these things, you have to recognize and realize, like, we're dealing with a lot of different issues, right? And it's we're having this really, you know um, we're having this really embattled thing. People are asking questions but don't recognize that you're asking from a culture that really doesn't exist, or at least when the Bible is written. When the Bible is written, you have to think, well, depending on where we are, I guess the time frame, right? But you're thinking mostly North Africa. And if you're not thinking, North Africa, you're thinking, at certain points, you got to think Eastern Africa, Western Africa, Central Africa. You have to think Western, Central, North, Eastern. Okay, yeah, and we don't think that. So people ask a question that's not based off of the region that the people even wrote the Bible in. That's when you got an interpretation piece. So look, if you're atheist, be atheist. But if you're going to ask a question, don't question the Bible. See, this is what the atheist does. The atheist says, I don't believe anything that you say anyways. So since I don't believe in it, I'm just going to go ahead and tell you why you're wrong from my cultural view. But from your cultural lens, even in trying to say what I'm talking about is a fable, if that's where you're going, you still have to be able to comprehend that fables don't work the same, right? In Kemet, we don't have gods. In Kemet, we don't have gods. So you can't ask questions about gods. You got to talk about natures. And if you don't know the difference between the two, then I can give you all the answers in the world, right? But still can't, it's still not going to help you with so much because you don't comprehend the difference between the two. If you don't comprehend that Yesus and Yesu have to do with Zeus, and you're using the same thing when you use that new letter in history, which is called the letter J, Jesus, and say the same thing, you don't even want to admit that just like there's a Pegasus, there's a Jesus or a Zeus. And that's the reason why. So when you ask a question, about Jesus versus a question about Yahshua, we have to start saying, okay, there's a cultural difference. And it's not right. I explain those things a lot when people ask them. However, it will still be lost on a lot of people because there's a culture that comes with it. You see what I'm saying? There's a culture that comes with that. There's a culture that has to be established that says that you can, in fact, be about or do those things. So to talk about Jesus, you have to, even in the Bible, you have to talk about Jesus correctly because Jesus, in the original version of the Bible, right? Even in the original version of the Bible, you have to look at Jesus as a nickname because it's Pontius Pilate who puts it up there to say he's all the way man and all the way Zeus. He's a demigod. He says, I know that he has no blame in him. And he's saying that he's one and the same. He's the son of Alachem. Well, our Alachem is Zeus. So I'm going to call him son of Zeus or half man, half Zeus, a demigod who has power. And that's why I wash my hands clean and do this. Like it's right there. He wrote his name, Yahshua, in Hebrew. And then for those who are Latin and Greek, for those who might have been in the pagan deities or deities, he said, I'm going to make sure that I put this up so everybody else can comprehend. How you doing, Shalom, Benjamin? He said, I'm going to put it up that way. I'm going to do it that way for a specific reason. I'm going to put it up there for you to be able to comprehend that that this Jesus, he wasn't saying Jesus is Lord. He wasn't saying Jesus and Zeus are the same person. He wasn't saying that Jesus was the manifestation of Zeus or of his deity. He was simply saying that, hey, I recognize him being all the way man and all the way Zeus. This is what he's trying to tell us. So if you're going to talk about Jesus, you have to comprehend that's who you're talking about. And that's why it's okay for you to do winter solstice, or that's why it's okay for you to do Saturnalia, or that's why it's okay for you to worship the sun and do it on Sunday, or that's why it's okay for you to worship the moon on Monday, or to worship the god of war on Tuesday, or to worship Odin on Wednesday, or to worship Thor on Thursday, right? Thursday, or to worship Frida on Friday or Frida's Day, right? Or to worship Saturnalia, all that stuff on Saturn's Day or Saturday. We're having a different conversation. And so many of the questions that people have, it's not going to be answered correctly because we're not even having the proper conversation. You said, why don't we cultivate more unity between QMT and Eber? We weren't we all one at one time? Shouldn't we be working on that? Well, I mean, as far as working on one, who's to say that just because you believe in something, I don't believe in something, we can't make sure that we grow food together, or we can't talk with one another, or we can't defend one another, etc. That's what Moors did. That's what Moors did. Moors had different belief systems, all that. They still came together, right? If you're talking about, though, what one believes, I mean, someone has the right, just like you did, to be able to tell me, a little while ago that, I was coming down on all the Kemetic netures, and I hate Kemetic people, I hate myself and all these things, and I'm doing Willie Lynch stuff and all that stuff like that. I mean, you have the right to feel that, but but that should have, but if we're going to work together, sure, we can work past it. This is why it's, that's why we have a series, Haven't Been Led as We Believe. It's not necessarily about you have to believe everything it is. I'm just telling you, as far as if you're going to open up the Bible, then you've got to come culturally correct. If you believe that Kemet or the Netchers or who you need to be with, and you're going to go with the Confessions of Ma'at before you go with what people call the 10 Commandments, even though there were commandments before then, but if that's what we're going to do and say that they have to be the same thing, I mean, hey, but, we're talking about a belief thing. See, once again, it's fine. It's all good. Yeah, I did say that. I said that everything in Kemet was evil and everybody in Kemet was evil. No, I said that I started talking about the natures that the Most High when he did the plagues that he came against. And then for you, you say it's the same thing. Okay. I, in my studies, I've come across something that's completely different. And I'm somebody who may not know as much about Kemet as you do, but I'm not an average brother when it comes to Kemet, because the average brother or sister don't really know nothing more than Kemet's ancient Egypt, and that's it. Right. So, but your studies are taking you one way, you feel that way, then you do what you do. you know, like, at the end of the day, like my wife has actually been, watching a bunch of videos on Kemet as of late. And, I watch stuff on Kemet and read stuff on Kemet all the time. My son and his homeschooling gets stuff on Kemet. So it is what it is, like, and that's why I've even talked about, this is an interesting thing when that conversation comes up and people start doing that. The interesting thing to me is, it's like, well, why do you guys ignore when I talk about the fact that we are part Kemetic? Why do you ignore when I talk about the Bible says that the children of Kemet are also part of the children of Yashdel? It says that, because children, by the way, Romans chapter 9, verse 6 says that not all Israel is Israel. So I ain't even talking about the flesh thing. It's talking about that there are people of Kemet that believe the same thing we do. Or when I talk about how in Kemet there was a fight even amongst our own brethren as to whether there are many netchers or there's just one netcher, or even all the netchers that come out, they really are just a manifestation of one. Therefore, they're really technically all just one netcher. But we're looking at it in different ways to help us with where we come from. Or when I talk about how the Bible and history backs up the fact that when Babylon begins to attack Yashville, Kemet, and Cush, remember, Kemet's really only 20 minutes away by flight to Israel, right? So when they found out about it, they came over and they helped us, right? I talk about all those things too, but for whatever reason, it sticks in people's craw, because I'm like, but I'm not 100% everything that comes out of Kemet. And then I think what gets people upset is I tell people that even with Kemet, why do we act like, or even with Israel? That's why we have to comprehend, before there was Israel, there was Isaac. Before there was Isaac, there was Abraham, right? Before there was Abraham and all them, you can go all the way back to Hebrew. Before you go back to Hebrew, you can go back to, or Peleg, and then Hebrew. And then before you go to Hebrew or Eber, After, you can go all the way back to Noah. And before Noah, you can go all the way back, like we do this weird thing where it's like everything has to be this one thing and everybody copied off. We don't want to be honest about there's stuff that came before. There's pharaohs that came before people we even acknowledged as pharaohs. And that's all, we're really saying. So if there's stuff like that, that's fine. But once again, I think people get upset when it's like, I'm not going to agree 100%. Like, nobody has to agree 100% with me. And so I wouldn't dream of saying that I'm going to agree 100% with you, because I probably won't. And I still have to study. And you know what? Maybe 5 months later, maybe 5 years later, maybe I agree. Maybe I go, oh, okay, maybe there's some stuff to it. Because, once again, I wasn't born and raised a Christian. Right? I wasn't born and raised believing that there was a Trinity. I wasn't born and raised this is not stuff that I just randomly, came upon, or something that somebody fed me. Now, I was influenced, but there was influence that happened. And once we get something, that's why we study. And so all I ask is, the same thing. So, I'm not up on every single netcher. I don't know, outside of maybe 5 or 6 netchers exactly how they work. I know, well, maybe I'd say 10, 15, even though like the last 10 out of that 15, I probably am not very familiar with outside of, very basic things, but it's not my goal to try and say that because I believe something that you're evil, you know. Because people think the oldest beliefs are the correct ones. You need cultural context, yeah. And so I go back to ancient things to be able to go back to it is, but we have to still settle the ancient. Like just because, like we do this weird thing where we own, like, look, chattel slavery based off of skin color is probably one of the most violent, evil things to ever exist, right? But to act like there was never any type of, even though it wasn't called slavery, that word Slav didn't exist, and it wasn't exactly what we do today, but to act like there was never anybody being sold into slavery at all before, like that's a weird thing to do. I think we should go back and we should recognize racism for what it is and things. We should also go back and say, are there some things that we were doing that weren't right? Right? How you doing, Sister Lord? Right? Maybe we should go back and say, maybe it was wrong that we had slaves. Whether you're talking about Kemet, Yashville, whether you're talking about Cushitic people who had Kemetic, whether you're talking about Cushitic people that had Cushitic, whether you're talking about people of ancient Mali, way thousands and thousands of years before Mali that lived in the area and did it, wherever you're talking about. Whether it was European people who didn't look like what we call white people today look like, whatever the case might be, whoever did it. Maybe we should just go first and foremost before we get into the fight of this and that. Maybe that's wrong. You see, and so the question is coming from a bad place culturally. It's coming from a bad place culturally, where we're trying to say, well, white people, blah, blah, this and that or whatever. And sure, they're wrong for it, without a doubt. But then I say, but we got some stuff to deal with that we've been dealing with generationally that even supersedes, or precedes rather slavery, and people are, chattel slavery, and people lose their minds sometimes. There's some issues. There's some issues with Yashtel. Like, do we not recognize Yashtel? Can we not recognize this? That it was wrong for us, Yashtel, the way that we came about. Elohim can work together, all things together for his constitution, or what we call good, right? By his constitution, he can work it out. But that word good, is really talking about his constitution. So he can use his constitution to still work out imperfections and perfect things, right? So cool, right? But should we not point that out, that that's something that was wrong when Yashadel came together, and you had Jacob or Jacob, who was already a trickster, who already got his birthright and stole it, right? Like, should we not recognize that there's something? Should we not recognize that he went and worked 7 years and then was tricked into marrying the older sister, but because he still loved the younger sister, he worked 7 more years and had the younger sister, and then basically now has 2 wives when he wasn't supposed to have but one. And then they start having a competition because the older sister's having babies and the younger sister who he loves isn't, and so they start giving their servants to him to be able to have sex with as well. And so now he's got 4 wives when he only wanted one, right? And the last one, Rachel, doesn't even give birth to one until the last 2, and on the second of the 2, she dies giving childbirth, right? So now, you've got all these things that are going on. Do you not think that it was wild that you had 12 sons, which will become 12 tribes of people that are based upon that? Right there, we should deal with some things, right? But that's cultural. We should look at some of these things. Yeah, unlearning or learning is hard work, but necessary. Yeah. So even in that, what are some of the things that we deal with as a people? What are some of the consequences that we've dealt with? What are some of the things that have came on to us? Thank you, Sister Lori. What are some of the things that have come to us, that have messed with us, that have harmed us, right? Aren't people stealing our birthright all the time? Like Jacob stole a birthright? Aren't we even a people who helped? I'm not to the level that the people by the social construct of white have been telling us, right? But isn't that something that we sold Joseph into slavery? And now later on in history, you'll see, or in our story, you'll see we're selling some of our own again, even though we've been scattered by being enslaved by many different people. Like, there's things that are coming on because of things that are there, and these are generational curses as well, right? These are generational curses as well, and we don't deal with those things that we're dealing with within ourselves, like Dr. Joy DeGroy talks about in her book, PTSS, post-traumatic slave syndrome, that we as a people have not even had dialogue within ourselves. How you doing, Eleanor? Right? We have not had dialogue within ourselves to be able to say, maybe some of the things that we're doing are wrong. Maybe some of the things we're carrying, right? We are not talking about some of these things. Now we're starting to ignore things just like people ignored them when they did it to us. And thank you, Sister Cynthia. How you doing? Right? Now we're starting to ignore things the way people are ignoring things with us. Now we're the ones saying, don't do this. It's not about the white man, blah, blah, this and that or whatever. Nobody said it's the white man that makes us make every decision, but we're not going to act like there's no culture. There's no influence, right? We're not going to act like that the language that we speak is because we chose to speak it. Now we have a choice, but we do have a choice now. Just like we talk about curses, Deuteronomy 28:15 to 68 is a bunch of curses. And everybody's studying all the curses and studying all the curses and talking about, yeah, see, this makes us and this and that or whatever. But we never study the blessings as much. Deuteronomy 28 verses 1 through 14. You have a right to experience the blessings, but you got to separate yourself off. You got to cut yourself off from some of these things. How you doing, Lion King? We've got to go to a different direction. And thank you again for the likes, for the shares, for all that great stuff. We appreciate it, for your gifts, for donations, all those things. We appreciate them coming in. Thank you. Right. We we have gotten to a place where our questions are not based off of cultural issues, and therefore our answers are not based off of cultural issues. There's a culture that comes with this. There's a culture. See, Willie Lynch, when he wrote the Willie Lynch letter, when we go back there, right? Willie Lynch, when he wrote the Willie Lynch letter, if you go talk about what I actually said about the Willie Lynch letter, and what not only I said, what he said, right? Because I don't like to give you my opinion. I like to give you contextual facts. He said that I'm going to reverse your nature. He told you that I'm going to make your woman, who he didn't even call a woman, he said an N-word female, but he said, I'm going to make your woman dependent on us while saying that she's strong, independent, but in reality, she'll be frozen in fear. And she'll be frozen in fear, being strong and independent, because she's got to deal with a man that I'm going to beat into submission to a place where he's going to walk around and be afraid. He said he studied you and reversed your nature. He said he studied your civilization. He said that your civilization is savage to his civilization. Why? Because your civilization will tear his down. He said that the only thing that will take place will be that if the hearts of the fathers return to the children, and the hearts of the children return to the fathers. He said if he said the same thing in your generational curses. He studied you. He studied your word and then ripped it out of the slave Bible. He studied your word and then ripped it out of the slave Bible. He said that I see here, their culture says that if they are a husband and a wife, then their society runs well. He said, we're going to reverse their nature, and then we're going to rip out anything that they could read. See, we think it's just ripping out the words, the language, what it meant, this and that, or whatever. That's part of it. But they literally studied your words. Because remember, you came over with Qurans, you came over with Bibles, you came over speaking in many different tongues. You came over with a concept of everybody, might speak 7 languages, and that might be common for people. Even the most common of people, as far as classism, would still be able to do these things. And yet, we don't even think about that now. Because he said, I'm going to take who you are, I'm going to have you fight against each other so much that when you fight against each other, you'll forget. You'll forget that even though Kemet and Yashtel had some beef, that if Kemet was in trouble or Yashtel was in trouble, we come into the rescue. If Kush is in trouble, we come into the rescue. Right? We have cats of West Africa at the same time. If someone went down, they come into the rescue. But we'll set it up where you'll forget, or we'll come and we'll see the hate in your heart for the system that you're in, and also for each other because of what's going on. That's the curse. And he said, we'll use these differences. See, look, it used to be that the differences were really small puzzle pieces, and we were like, cool, we'll just connect the puzzle pieces because your differences help us to get a clear puzzle. Now what happens is they have, think about it, I don't know what you call them, where you put the water on them, or they shrinky things or something, I don't know what you call them, but you put the water on and they blow up. They put some water on it, right? And these things have blown up so much that the puzzle pieces, you still know they're puzzle pieces, but it's so difficult because they're so grand and huge to press together. You feel like you might as well fight against each other. If somebody says one thing that you don't like, we got to fight them. This is why our questions have been messed up. Our questions are about fighting more so than about learning. If somebody presents something to me and I don't know, I don't know. And even if I say that I know something that somebody else knows, it doesn't mean that I'm better than you. It just means that I might have some information you don't, and vice versa. Right? But the context of our questions have become based upon the context of somebody else's culture, and we're having problems. Yeah, envy not your oppressor. We have a problem with that. We have a problem where we covet the oppressor. I'm not saying you should covet anybody. Don't covet your brother, but we covet the oppressor. And the only reason you covet your brother nowadays is because he's got what the oppressor has. He's just dressed Afrocentric. He got money. He got talent. He got effort. He got a mansion. He got people listening to him. He got books. Because other cultures say that that's important. And you know why I recognize that? How I recognize that? Because I realized, like, even though I have a degree and stuff like that, but I don't have the degrees in the levels and stuff that everybody else does. But I don't even mention the degree. because I really don't think of it as valuable. But I knew that even though I don't think that that degree is valuable, because it didn't really teach me much of anything, especially things that I really need to know. I won't say much of anything. I learned a lot in psychology. I learned a lot as far as wordsmith, crafting my speech, etymology, things of that nature, apologetics, of course, hermeneutics, homiletics, topical preaching, things like that. So there's a lot of things that I did learn, even though I knew some of those things outside of the class too. But I'm thankful for those. But I realized, so I was like, why we started doing the books, and why we're going to start giving the music out, and why you start doing the shirts. Because guess what? People say, oh, well, if you got that stuff, then maybe you know something. It don't mean I know anything. But in people's minds, hey, he's got a book. He must know. Oh, he got several books. Oh, he must know. Oh, he got these pages out here. He must know. Right? Some people only listen because they're like, oh, okay. Some people will come on here and they'll see that we only got 20-something people on a live, and they'll click off because I must not know what I'm talking about. Some people come on here when we have a day, that's pretty decent, and we got 150 people on here. Oh, he must be doing really well. Let me sit down and listen. Some people only sit there. Some people only listen because they go, oh, well, what's up with his hair? Like we have different reasons. And we're not looking for cultural indicators. That learn behaviors, yet some can't or won't redirect for the community to be better, or for family sanctuary. Yeah. How you doing, Alan? Right. And we are so busy, and that's the reason why it's not about our culture. Our questions are not even coming from being one. Our questions are usually coming from a place where I'm trying to come against, and it's just because it's cultural. And I'm not any better. Sometimes, like, my questions are there to try and disprove I have to be better at that. Sometimes I do the same thing. It's a nature. It's become part of a nature. It's not our nature, but we've adopted it. We've adopted it. And so, but a lot of people don't think about that. Like, worldwide, there's this issue going on that's deeper than it. And so a lot of our questions, and once again, if you have questions, you can put them in the Q&A box, or just put them in the chat in different platforms. Thank you, everybody on TikTok, YouTube, the podcast, and Facebook. We appreciate your presence today. And if you're watching this live or watching this later on, we appreciate your presence. But we have to recognize, we have to go past this thing that's not ours. And it's very difficult, but it's not ours. The things that we're asking about a lot of times is because it's things that aren't ours. It's not ours. That's why it says you're be in the system, but not of it. If you're of it, it means you're born of it. Once again, birthright issues. We think that our birthright comes from the world because we've been taught that everything that makes us great, like using that word loosely here, but everything that makes us great is of a worldly value. If the colleges will accept you, then you must be of worldly value. Right? But why does nobody tell you that most people not only being outpriced of college, but a lot of young men especially are beginning to say, and a lot of young white men even besides that. But which shows you that because this society is based off of stuff that for white males to be able to hold power over everybody else, right? Not all white males, but that's the goal, is to become a rich white male. And everybody who wants to be rich, they base off their richnesses or their wealth or whatever off of rich white males, right? So if you have a system set up that's supposed to be like, hey, the goal is to be a rich white male, then why would you think that, why would you not pay attention to the fact that a lot of young white males are saying, I don't need college, right? And really, the reality is it was never for them in the first place. It was more so for you. You just wanted to go to college because you thought rich white males went to college and learned, and didn't even know a lot of rich white males just paid off college. They didn't even go to classes and stuff, right? It was more about the money than anything else. And now we see this, because if it was just college by itself, culture would tell us that black women should be making more money and own more stuff than everybody else. The reality is even though they're the most educated, they don't get the most. Now, some people want to try and argue like, hey, they're not the most assertive and this and that and blah, blah. But then again, it's like you'll say they're not the most assertive, but then you say they're the ones that always got an attitude and never listen. Something don't make sense. Right? A lot of our questions that we're asking about anything are off because the culture is off. Right? Hear me. brothers and sisters, and I know a few of us that live in that live in Buffalo. All the stuff that's going down, all the stuff that's happening, it's going to be used as a tool to simply get people to talk about gun rights. At the end of the day, this society, this culture, is not based off of actually caring about the people. These people now want to get voted in, or they want to stay voted in. And so everybody and their mama came in front of the country to be able to get some play and to try and say the right thing and to say how outraged they are. And they haven't been outraged enough because they made sure that your people couldn't be protected. And now they're going to try and say we should take away their ability to be protected whatsoever. They will never stop guns from being foreign. Forget outside of this country. They will never stop guns from being in this country. And they will never stop it from being something that young white males will be able to go to, no matter what their age is. This young boy was shooting these weapons at 15, probably as early as 12, because that's when he admitted that he started reading some of the stuff he was reading, right? But at 15, he was out there for sure, according to his own word. We went through that. Those of you who were on the Patreon session and were on the last part of it on TikTok on Tuesday night, we talked about it, right? That young boy was out there doing all these different things, right? That young boy was out there doing all these different things. That young boy was out there doing all these different things, and nobody was even thinking. His parents were in the system that said something will happen to. As a matter of fact, what's going to happen to his parents? Is anything going to happen to his parents? Is anything going to happen to, I forget the guy's name now, but that young 18-year-old boy that did what he did? Is anything going to happen to his parents? But if you send your child to school in the wrong district, Kamala Harris will lock you up, and then you'll vote her in as president. You know why? Because that's the culture. Right? That's the culture. Kamala Harris, who do like this to you while having that white husband. I'm not saying I'm against white and black marriage. What I'm saying is that she hit you with this, black pride and all that, and then married the white husband, has black servants all up in her house while inviting white people over. You're locking black people up in prison, and then you voted her in after Joe Biden said that if you don't vote for him, you ain't black enough. Like something happens, right? Where we got to, amen, babe, right? Like something, we got to be real and honest about something ain't making sense culturally. We're having conversations and it's not our culture. We're having arguments about things and it's not our culture. Great. You said the platform is used to contact and inspire others behind the veil to act with him. Oh yeah, most definitely. You know, and you read that manifesto, you'll see that's why we read some of the manifesto together, right? And obviously we couldn't read the whole 800 pages. I'm not going to do a series on it, but like if you get a chance, you know, find it. They've tried to scrub it off the internet, but you know, if you can find it, listen to it. If he's saying the same thing that's been said since 1491 about us. Let's see. Rhonda said, no matter the age or mental status, they will still be allowed access to weapons because it's their right, not ours. Right. Now, if you become sovereign, they can't come in your property and they can't look anyways, but you're allowed by law to be able to not even have to have your guns counted. This is why we talk sovereignty. So where even if they don't like it, right? And now watch this, if you're with a community of people that live on the same land or at least live close enough to you, then if something happens, guess what? Somebody's got your back. A lot of times what happens is our people are by themselves. We're dealing with some people now that we're trying to figure out how can we help them? How can we do some things? Might be losing their place of residence and stuff like that. And we're trying to figure out who's close enough to them. Because we might not have the finances to be able to just pay, off their rent or something like that for a long time. But maybe, who's close enough to them, this or that. We got people who are without certain amenities in their abode, in their home. And you'd be surprised, certain things that people are dealing with that don't even work. And we're trying our hardest. But we're once again, we're isolated. That's why Yah's land project, extremely important, YLP 83. That's why we got to figure it out. That's why we're thankful to those who are saying, hey, I got land over here. And we're talking about from the East Coast to the West Coast. People are opening up and saying, hey, all you got to do is come, bring whatever stuff you're going to plant. We'll harvest it or whatever. And I don't even want anything. And we're like, no, you're going to get food for you and your family. But then we need to make sure we got food to be able to give to others. Like that's part of the issue. Like my wife said, isolation leads to death. We have to come together, and we're trying to make sure that we are fighting somebody while not saying we'll come together. It's cognitive dissonance. You said you actually believe that's why Jackson was nominated for SCJ. Yeah, we need our reparations more now than ever. I mean, yeah, you know, reparations and everything, the stuff that you deserve. The only problem is when you're gonna get it, and while we're waiting for it, what are we gonna do? If that's something we're waiting on, look, I'm not saying you're wrong to wait on it. I'm just being honest with you. Like you've been waiting on it for a long time. Biden told you he was gonna give it to you, or he was at least gonna look at it. And part of the reason why what's his face bowed out the way that he did, they said, okay, we'll make you look good because we'll do reparations, Bernie. And we even know that Biden has been recorded as like we heard his voice saying, oh, to other senators, like, yeah, you know, I know we promised some reparations. Don't worry about it. There's not going to be anything that comes up. Like there has to be at some point we had to recognize, look, it's not coming. Right? It came for a little bit. We did very well with it. They said we can't let these people do it. They even changed the Constitution up. The 14th Amendment. The 13th Amendment was to lock you up, not because you're black, but if they arrest you, they'll lock you up and then they arrest you. But then you made freedmen, right? By General Sherman. We did very well. We did excellent. Had the Freedmen Bank, all that stuff. Then they started taking the money, changing the laws, arresting us, making us slaves. Frederick Douglass was trying to use his own money to keep the bank alive, and then finally said, "I can't do it anymore for the sake of my family, for the sake of my own sanity." And let it go or whatever, because he was out on the limb by himself too. And then they took it and then they made you 14th Amendment citizens. They made a lowercase c from that point on. Up until the 14th Amendment, citizen was uppercase. After that, lowercase. And they told you anybody born here has to be considered to be what they say an American is by a fake, by a fake government. So if you're looking for reparations, you know, what is that? Like, first of all, reparations, people talking about everybody should get this or money or blah, blah. Like, first become a non-citizen national. Have some inward reparations, right? Like we're asking for reparations from a people who have shown you that they will make sure that Ukrainians, which by the way, we know this for a fact. Remember stuff like denazification and stuff existed and never actually took place at all. And that they were taking Nazis and bringing them to your country and stuff, wherever your country is. They were bringing them all over the place to make sure that they can give them some of the technology or things that they had, right? Or even to hide them. Argentina and Chile and places like that, mostly Argentina though, more than Chile, like that's filled with people who are the descendants of Nazis, and they took the same people who were cooking you, because I know they want you to believe that it was only Jews, but there were black concentration camps and there were Christian concentration camps and there were concentration camps of political enemies and POW concentration camps, and they were literally cooking you in Ukraine, not somewhere in Ukraine. That's part of their history, and they flew them because Russia's coming to them, and they're flying them into what you think is your country, and they're going to make sure that they take care of them and any black people, any African people that might in fact make their way over with them from the Ukraine over here. Guess what? They put them right on the plane and they send them right back to Africa, while making sure that the people who are Nazis or come from Nazis and have that same mindset about you and I, not all, but a lot, they'll make sure that they get to stay here, but your people got to go. Even though this is more your land, to where you should be able to say, if an African comes over who is your brother more than somebody else, that they should be able to stay. They're not. This is the same place you're thinking is going to give you reparations. Reparations got to start with you, is what I'm trying to say. Right? That's why we've been saying, grow your own food, do this, and be prepared. Try to trade. See if people around you, right? Like when reparations has to start with us. I'm not sure how much because there's not that many people involved, but I promise you this year we will be able to say bare minimum, like at least we grew something that's ours on a high level, enough to where we had to get even a vehicle to be able to put it in, and we're going to be able to send people food, if not outright take it to them or whatever. If not outright sell some of it, to be able to ensure that we make something and be able to put it in the community, right? Doing this as a community, like that's reparations. And your reparations, unfortunately, I know reparations by definition, you feel like it's got to come from the government that did you dirty. But guess what? You need to control. You need to have your own private organization, corporation, government, your own private land, and you need to repair yourself. I know it's not the same word, yes, but you need to have reparation. Repair is just saying to cut, to recut. To pair something is to prepare is to pre-cut it. You need to repair. You need to keep recutting over and over again things so that you are colonizing. Don't get mad at the colonizer. Get mad at the person who won't colonize. Don't get mad at the person who gentrifies. Get mad at the people who won't gentrify. At some point, you want this thing to be for your people. Where's your gentrification at? Right? We have people with all types of things as part of this community. Why are we not gentrified? We got somebody with a storefront. We got people here with, and I'm not saying these people got to open it up. I'm just giving examples, right? I'm not even going to say who, because people might start looking at who going to do this or who going to do that, right? No, but we got people that got businesses as far as shea butter to we got shea butter, natural medicine, massaging, uh, um, food products, people that grow food. We have people that are into all types of business, people that do stuff on social media, all these things. We have people with places, legit places that we could actually open up businesses in. We're not thinking about that as reparations. We got HVAC. Thank you. I forgot about this. Somebody wants to do HVAC, all that. You had enough to where you could go to a neighborhood, people who actually have places that you could open, right? You can do stuff in, and you could sell your product. Communications, all this. Come on, right? Like there's a lot of stuff on here, but we're looking for somebody and saying, hey, when are you going to give us something? We're not going to move till you give us. Think about that. We as a people have decided we won't move until you allow us, until you give us. Give us this law. Give us this. When are you going to give us land? When are you going to do this? Right? That's why you got to be in the position of when are you colonized? You are in a kingdom. Jewelry, right? Etc. Right? Construction, etc. Right? When do you say you're in the kingdom? Herbal medicine, etc. Right? Classes, we got classes we give out. When do you say that you are in a kingdom? When do you say that kingdoms expand? When do you start saying that kings do this? Right before we get together on October 14th through the 16th, if some people want to come on, like either on the East Coast or the West Coast, we're gonna be, I know my family and maybe a couple other people are gonna show up, and we're gonna get to work growing food. And we're gonna, make sure the land is there. We're gonna bring the seed. We're gonna do whatever we need to, and we're gonna grow the food. Right? Like we could meet up before October 14th through 16th. I know financially that might not be what everybody can do. I'm just saying, like we could easily do that. But it comes to a place like we keep talking about reparations. Look, I'm not saying you don't deserve reparations. What I'm saying is, what about this system tells you that people are going to give you what you deserve? Salah. What about this system says that they reward those who just sit and wait? I know they said good things come to those who wait. Okay, short circuit. If you want to be a part of it, we'd love to talk to you about it. Right. And everybody who's allowing us to do that while we're still working on getting the land for ourselves, we're going to make sure, of course, you're going to eat first because it's your land. Right. Just want to put that out there because sometimes we use and abuse each other. Right. So I just want to put it out in public. My wife wants to know if you're a new viewer, where are you from? Also, too, if you want to go on there and say, if you get in contact with us, we can make sure that we send you a link. If you're interested in being part of the community in any way, shape, or form, and you can fill out a questionnaire, and it'll help us to make sure that we can be in contact with you and let you know about things coming up in the future. Okay, just to let you know that as well. Northern VA. Okay, I went to. Matter of fact, her and I went to school, Northern VA. Somebody said Tampa, Florida. She's from Florida, not from Tampa. But Northern VA, we went to high school, both of us in Northern VA. She was in Arlington. I was in Alexandria. So, yeah, so I'm definitely familiar with Northern VA, DMV, same thing. But, nothing new under the sun. Like in Exodus, they might give reparations, but only take it back. Hold on, I'm sorry. Having an issue with my stuff. Okay. You're from Florida? Okay, cool. Yeah, I got to double check. I meant to bring my calendar down here today. Maybe we can do it at the end. If y'all want to be patient with me at the end, I can go run and get my calendar and bring it down, and we can look at the dates of when we're supposed to be in these places. The DMV, we're probably going to be there sooner than what we have listed, because we're looking at the DMV now, more than likely trying to do something in between, like somewhere in between July, uh, like late July and first couple of weeks of August. Somewhere in between there, don't know when and where yet, but somewhere in there. We'll probably be there for a minute before we start traveling again. But so we're looking at doing that. No, I didn't go to TC. I went to Edison, Thomas Edison. Thomas Edison. Now I played against TC in ball and football, basketball, even some marching band stuff, whatever. I played against TC. Y'all, we weren't really rivals like that, though. Matter of fact, y'all had some pretty nice players at the time I was going, at least on your freshman squad. I remember them cats was huge, at least for a little bit. Are you Illinois? Okay, naturally. Well, remember, we're going to be in Chicago. 27th, 28th. We're going to be in Detroit 29th, 30th. More so the 30th for Detroit than 29th, because we'll be getting there late. But, maybe I can try and make myself available. I'm not sure about my whole family because it's going to be a long trip. But maybe, I'm going to say hello to everybody when we get over there briefly for the evening. But we also got to take care of some family business over there. So the 30th, we can promise for sure we'll be over there. But hello, Shalom, Shay. Right. But, these are the things that we're, going back to what we were talking about with what was I saying? Sorry. Oh yeah, going back to what we were talking about with reparations. Like even those questions about that and what is our belief on that? Like our belief is sure there are people that owe you. That's really reparations. Yeah, they owe us. Thanks for the love, short circuit. Yeah, there are people that owe you. By the definition, reparations. If they can give reparations to slave owners, Abraham Lincoln, who's one of us, don't forget he's Melungeon, right? He was a third white, a third black African, and a third black native. He was a Melungeon, right? But just because, right? But that same person, going back to talking about the Kamala, and my wife talked about how, basically like, just because somebody looks like it doesn't mean that they mean as well. Abraham Lincoln, he had said before he even ran for president that he knew in his heart that black people were inferior. And remember, he gave reparations to slave owners. Remember, Abraham Lincoln himself was a slave owner. Don't get it twisted. I know they dress it up real nice for you and everything. Put a nice little bow. Information in Chicago, just get in contact with us. If you get in contact with us, I'll be able to send you. I'll be able to send you the info. I'll be able to send you an itinerary. Okay, but yeah, it's we have to recognize that, right? And so it's the same thing. We have people telling us about beliefs. Like, when Abraham Lincoln says all men are created equal, but then pays reparations to slave owners, but won't give you reparations. You got to ask yourself why. And people say, well, no, Abraham Lincoln, he's the one that gave us 40 acres and a mule. No, General Sherman gave you 40 acres and a mule. And General Sherman didn't even like black people. He was impressed because there were 4 black pastors that stood up and told him they basically said, we don't want to be Americans. We want to have our own land, teach our own culture, make sure our people know about ourselves. And he said, wow, I respect that. He gave 40 acres and a mule, and he also gave it because he wanted to ensure that the South had their backs broken. Now, then when he became a Southern citizen again and went back down South to live, then he started talking bad about black people again. But he never liked black people. And Abraham Lincoln didn't like himself. Remember, Abraham Lincoln was raised a slave. If you don't believe so, Abraham Lincoln, they'll tell you. They kind of just mention it briefly in school books and they just kind of gloss over it. But they'll tell you, oh, yeah, Abraham Lincoln, he was somebody who, when he saw the slaves, he saw himself, and he came from a place to where your father could treat you like a slave, if you were born to him. And I remember hearing that, and that sounded weird to me, but I just let it pass when I was younger. But I got in like my 20s, and I thought about it, and I was like, wait a minute, why would they say that? Why would he be allowed to be treated like a slave just because he was his child? That's not how white children were treated. And then I got it. Oh, oh. And then you find out that he was a Melungeon, which means his mama was mixed with black native and black African, as in many of us. And you go, oh, okay. So his mama was, was RAP, you know what? RAP, you know what D, right? And then when she had him, he was a slave, but he was like a house slave, and because he looked, white, he got a whole bunch of privileges that other people didn't. And then eventually he ran away and got to be able to have his own childhood, but he still grew up thinking that, hey, black people were worse than white people because how he was raised. Oh, okay. Okay, because he said, he was going to try and get the union to stay. That's why you got to comprehend every president's job is not to make sure that greatness happens for you and I. Their job is to make sure that they preserve the union. That's what they do. Their job is to preserve the union. So now, check to peep game. Can I say that? Now let's get back to the FAQ before we run away too far from what the scripture portion of this conversation is. If my job, stay with me now. If my responsibility is to preserve the union, somebody hear what I'm about to say, all right? Hopefully you receive this, right? I'm gonna try and sieve this, and so you can receive this. Hopefully you sieve this, right? Hopefully you get this concept, this idea, right? This sept, this. I'm gonna give you the precept. We're giving you the environment. I'm gonna give you the sept now, the idea, and hopefully you can walk away with the concept. You can be one with the idea. Are you ready? Okay, check this out. If the president's number one goal, right? If somebody's number one goal, if this country's number one goal, you already with me? Okay, cool. Right? If their number one goal is to preserve the union, then why do you think that they're going to teach you anything about the Bible that does not help to preserve the union? It is not about preserving you, it is about preserving the union. Why do you think that churches that are out here, it don't matter if it's black or white or whatever, Asian, Jewish, I don't care, right? Messianic Jew, I don't care. Why do you think that churches that speak about preserving the union rather than preserving you are rewarded? Come on, somebody, right? Hallelujah, right? That's a come on, that's a bar right there, right? Like that's gonna be something. If you get that to resonate, that's the reason. Why don't the churches teach this? What is the reward? There is no system. There is nothing we have set up that says that you can preach the truth worldwide. Yes, I would agree. Right? When we go back home to Africa, I would agree that that's what you're gonna see. Lack of all these things. Hear what I'm saying? What is the reward for somebody teaching you about you? What is the reward for the pastor? Right? I get it when pastors are scared. I talk to a lot of the pastors that are scared still. Right? I talk to the pastors that are, that are scared across the country. Pastors that will come to me and ask me questions that will be in these lives that will sit here and be quiet the whole time so you don't even know who they are. But I'm not going to get invited to speak to their congregation, but they're listening to the word, which means that they are afraid. Why are they afraid to speak the truth? Because there's no reward. This system is set up where you lose. Somebody can be a pastor for 30 years. There are white pastors. This isn't a black thing only. There are white pastors that were out here speaking the same thing that I'm speaking. And as soon as they do, been in their church 10 years. I'm telling you from people I know or people that I watch talk about it, people I've reached out to see if they were okay. Spoke the same truth. Guess what happened? Lost the job. And we don't set up a system that says, okay, so what I'm saying is this system is not here talking about reparations because you're dealing with a culture that there's no reward for going against it. You think that the beast is going to reward you for being a human being? Matter of fact, legally, they will not. Look up Black's Law Dictionary right now. Type in your search engine. Type up Black's Law Dictionary definition of human, and you will see two words. It says SEEC, monster. That means you need to look up what a monster is. So then type in Black's Law Dictionary definition of monster, and you will discover that a monster is somebody that's without rights. It's right. So because your humanity is monstrous to this system. Why would you think that they would reward your humanity? What does the word human mean? Humus man, dark, rich, nutrient earth with a spirit inside. And then, of course, you have to have something breathed into you. That's the soul to become a living soul. Right? Spirit, soul, and body. Why would they reward you for that? It kills the system. Yeah, it breaks the doctrine. Why would they reward marriage? Well, we're rewarded and blah blah this and that. No, no, no. Where is your reward? Why would they reward marriage? Because true marriage is just sex. Sex is marriage. People out here having marriage all the time. you know, like why would they reward these things? The kingdom is not rewarded in this system because this is a kingdom of darkness. And so they're doing their part to keep the righteous one separated, keep us away from the birthright. Yeah, and then they want us to think our birthright comes from them. To still afraid from Yahshua because that's what he taught. Yeah, he said they are looking for rewards from the system, and not the kingdom. Of course, they have us sitting there thinking that our empowerment comes from them. So still, people are saying, and look, I'm not saying that you don't deserve it. Once again, I just want to keep it 100 with you. Why are we looking to the same system that empowers you as long as you're a slave to tell you that they're going to give you reparations? They empowered your slave masters. Here's a homework assignment for you one day. Look up how many businesses were around during the time of slavery, how many family names were around the time of slavery, and see how many of them are still in existence today, living off of slavery. Not even living off of modern times. Barely can stand the black now, but they have so much money that they made, right? People don't recognize this, and this is probably a lowball figure, but in the times of chattel slavery was considered to be a $4 billion. Matter of fact, yeah, $4 billion business. I'm not talking about the things that came out of it. We're not even talking about the cotton that they use worldwide. That's why they have King Cotton brand stuff you can buy still to this day. Still got the name King Cotton on it. Ain't that something? Right? But it was a $4 billion, and I'm not talking about I'm not talking about inflated. I'm talking about by that standard in the 1800s, $4 billion business, right? I don't even know if you adjust that to today. I don't even know what that is, right? It's got to be hundreds of billions, if not trillions, right? That's what it was before we even get to you pick cotton, before we even get to the prisons, before we even get to the slave patrolmen, before we even get to all these things based off of it, before we even get to plantations, how many dinners were served, how much food was gotten, how many fights that went on that slaves had to make sure that they went out and were there to support the generals and things like that. Like before we even get to how much is permeated society, just the act of selling people, whether they were indigenous here or whether they were brought over here or whether it was a mix of the two, $4 billion at that time. That's what America's based off of. Yeah, thanks, babe. America's rich because of slavery. Billions were made during slavery, and what do you say? And wealth of towns still. Yeah, towns still. There are towns still to this day that are making money off of what happened chattel slavery. Now, chattel slavery still exists, so they're still making money, but now they want to tell you that there's a prison, and so even though they'll take the prisoners outside to pick cotton, and they're still selling the cotton worldwide, they'll tell you there's no slavery. Oh, I thought I said trillions, but if I said trillions, okay. Maybe it sounded like zillions when I said it, but yeah, that's what I thought I said. But okay, thank you for the correction. So, it's you have to recognize that that's what happened. So that's just off of selling. We're not even talking about all the things that then the slaves did. We're not even talking about stuff like the cotton gin that's created by a slave, what they call a slave prisoner of war, etc. We're not going to talk about how the stuff that they're using on you now, ladies. When you go to OBGYN, that was stuff that they did with no anesthesia, trying to figure out how to do that stuff on slaves, right? Think about how uncomfortable the situation is and how y'all don't even like going. And somebody's got to stick something cold and stuff and put fingers inside you and all those things. Think about being a woman where they were, right, that thing that goes in, they were using sharp objects sometimes. And sometimes they were using things that had splinters on them. And sometimes they were doing all this stuff. And they did that, right? They did that or whatever. And a lot of times after they finished, then of course they had the woman tied down because she was in pain. But like they say still today in the textbooks, Black women can't feel pain. How can a Black woman ask for pain and suffering if she can't feel pain? you know, you said not to mention things invented to make their slave jobs easier, created by us. Yeah. All these things. Doing brain surgery, yeah, calling a neurosurgeon now, but doing it on people that were alive. Talking about, how to make sure that they can give you fake teeth and stuff like that now, and put fake teeth in your mouth. They used to rip out the teeth of slaves and put it in their mouth, right? And we have the DNA membrane, so we don't even talk about the fact that we're still dealing with it. Okay, in Delaware, cool. That's what's up. I don't know if we'll actually hold on. Delaware is not that difficult from where I was. Depending on where we are, Delaware might not be that difficult. I'd have to like only maybe make it happen in a day or two, and maybe if I could have a spot or something like that, because Delaware is about, I think the closest. Well, it depends on where we are. It depends on where we are, right? You know, but it's we're sitting up there. We're trying, playing Monopoly with one dice. If that. We're playing Monopoly, but every time you roll the one dice, it's gonna say one, or the one die, or no, yeah, dice. I'm sorry, one dice. It's just gonna say one. How you doing, Sister Awesome? Right? Like these are the things that we're not aware of, we're not thinking about, we're not thoughtful of, we're not appreciative of. When I say appreciative, people say appreciate. Yeah, I mean it in the literal sense. Like we should appreciate and value, but we keep looking to a system that keeps telling you you ain't nothing, and saying appreciate me, lift me up, give me reparations. They have to see you as somebody worthy of reparations before they give it to you. What in the world has shown you that they believe that you are worthy of reparations? What in this system tells you that they believe that you are appreciated? Like I said, they want you to talk about God, and God's not even real. You said with five blank sides, so I guess yeah. Sometimes it just roll up on nothing. I like that, right? You you said would put our teeth in their mouths. Yeah, didn't want to touch slaves, right? Said they didn't want to touch slaves. Remember, Thomas Jefferson is quoted as saying that black women are ugly and smelly and lazy, while he had all them little black babies running around. The system, if you're trying to participate in this system and make it your system, it is a lie. And people want to have conversations about the word, not realizing that the same system that is about preserving a negative union with cognitive dissonance, as my wife just said, with extreme cognitive dissonance, right? They want you to believe that system is going to teach you about the Bible. You think when they say, "In God we trust," you think that's Alachem. At a certain point, we got to start saying, when do we start doing our own reparations? When do we start saying, you know what, enough is enough? We're going to teach our own babies, not just with homeschooling, as far as teaching just your babies. When do we come together and say, look, man, I'd rather trust you in my community than trust somebody, right? Even if it's my community member who wants to teach well, who goes to the school, who says, I'm going to be the black male teacher and a black male role model at the school that people don't get to see. They still ain't teaching us nothing. Look, I remember this guy's name, Mr. Cheatham. He was somebody who actually was a really good basketball player, got injured, was supposed to make the NBA, all that stuff. He used to play outside with us, do all these things or whatever, had a really nice looking wife and all these things. He was always dressed, really well and all these and everything. And we would look at him. We were like, man, that's somebody to look up to. Can I tell you that? Can I tell you this much though? Even though he represented a lot of great things, I cannot remember one thing that he taught us outside of, hey, a black man could have a black wife, be faithful, do all these things, be great, etc. I'm honest with you. I don't remember one thing he taught me as far as Africa. One thing he taught me as far as the Bible. One thing he taught me, like I don't remember any of the classes we took. Right. And I'm saying that he did teach me, like at least I saw, hey, black man, black woman, this and that, blah, blah. But I can't remember one thing he taught. I don't remember how he taught me. He played against us in basketball. I don't remember him teaching us anything about basketball. He was somebody, who was very handsome or whatever. I remember him and very put together. I remember him talking about, this is how I put myself together. This is how I dress, And I'm not saying that I'm killing them off. Like I just legit don't remember. Maybe he did those things. I don't remember though. I don't remember him thinking that a father figure was necessary. Like those are things that we're not going to get from anybody else. If somebody were to place $1 billion right now in the hands of most of our community, right? If somebody were to give a family right now $1 billion, there are some people that money would not last. Even though you can't spend it all in one place, it's very difficult. But you would be surprised some of the things that people might start buying. right? If we were to give $2 billion to everybody in one of the projects and split it up amongst them, you would be surprised some of the things that have nothing to do with generational wealth that would happen. You would be surprised, right? And if you wouldn't, and if you say, "Oh, how dare you say that?" Forget black or white. Look at people who win the lottery and how many of them go bankrupt. Hmm. Money is a talisman that returns to the owner. I never heard that one, babe. Wow. Right. But look at that. There's a guy. I don't know how much I would say this is 100% true, but I get what the person was saying. Where there was a guy, I can't remember who it is, who said this, who I heard said this, but he said he talked to a billionaire, and the billionaire told him that if you were to take all of the money in the world right now and take it away from billionaires and stuff, he said if you were to put it in the hands of and ultimately basically like split it up amongst everybody right now and just give it to everybody in different places. He said that ultimately you're going to find that for the most part the money's going to go back to the same exact people that had it. Now this isn't 100% true because there's a lot of people out there that have knowledge of how to use finance but don't have the financial backing, right? But at the same time, you know, um, it's something that's out there. He's a Dave Chappelle, Cadillac, Newports, you know. But even with Dave Chappelle's an interesting case study because remember Dave Chappelle gave up, the money that he was owed, and he just wanted more money because they were trying to say we'll give you what we should have gave you the first contract now that you've blown up, and but we're not gonna pay you what you deserve, and we want you to make it a white show. We want you to get rid of a lot of your black, artists that are on there. And so when he did what he did, a lot of people don't recognize like he had a farm and stuff he lived on already. So he had like natural food and things around him, and he basically did comedy when he needed to. So he would travel around the country. A lot of people don't know. Like he would go across the country and he'd be like riding his bike and stuff. And when his children until got old enough with him, he'd take them with him, and they'd be riding around the country and doing all this great stuff. And then he'd be like, we need some money. We're over here in, I don't know, state of Utah or something, and we need some money. How about we do this? Let's go ahead and I'll put on a couple shows. And so he'll call his people up. They set up the shows or whatever. His name is Dave Chappelle. A lot of people come out, even though his name is down. They're gonna come out and see him. He makes enough money. He's able to save stuff. He saves it. Keeps on riding. you know, like so even Dave Chappelle is actually an interesting case study in making sure that you worry about self. And then eventually, right when he said, "Okay, I'm gonna start doing the big time stuff again, but I'm gonna be different." Remember when he was doing the Chappelle show and still putting out, great content as far as his specials and stuff. Maybe not as great. Some people might think, "Killing Me Softly" is better than whatever, right? But I can't remember all the names of the specials, but some people might like certain ones better. But he was still putting out great content and everything, as far as getting laughs and everything, and making money. And when he was doing the Chappelle show, he was making, or he was spending like sometimes 21 hour days, right? Sleep a couple hours, because he had to travel home. Well, he was driving, I guess, and he would, and then he come back and do it again, and sometimes do that 3 days in a row, 4 days in a row, till his body gave out. Um, so it took him coming out the system to then get to a place where he only did what he felt he needed to do and what he had to do. And his family was still fine. He could take care of everything. He could take care of his mom, all that. And then once he finishes with that, then he starts making the millions again. Just one special, $20 million, another special $20 million, another special $20 million. Go on. Before that, he did he got popular again because he was doing right before Trump was getting in, which made it interesting. People wanted to hear from him, but he did the Radio City Music Hall and stuff, right? And sold that out for like a couple weeks or something like that. And so, and now he has the same mindset. Like, I don't necessarily need the money because I've been living this lifestyle anyways. Like, I just use what I need. He still shows up to his town meetings. you know, he still like speaks against when they do stuff wrong in his place. It's just he's doing the same thing. He's doing the same thing that he's been doing. We just didn't see it for years, right? 10 years plus, whatever it was. We just didn't see it for a decade plus. Now he's coming out and doing these things. He said we need a situation that suits our culture. Get out of the twisted game. Most deaf. My wife said when you make the game and can control the rules, you just change the law when things aren't going your way. Yeah, and so, and thanks Miko for that. You said look at tax season. Mm-hmm. Render unto Caesar's thing, Caesar's things to Caesar, but things, yeah. And he's unplugged from the system, and he still see. Watch this. He comes in the system. Let me do this. Woo, woo, woo. I'll talk about this. I'll make this money. I'll take care of my family. And then he's not of it. He says, I'm out. Right? He's even to a place to where Netflix makes so much money off him that people that work for Netflix, I don't know how many of you guys saw this recently, but people that work for Netflix, they've been trying their hardest, especially LGBTQ plus. We're gonna quit. We're gonna do this. You got to get rid of Dave Chappelle because everybody else was telling them, you guys are in there and you got to talk to him. You got to get rid of Dave Chappelle. And Netflix came out and said, look, we're gonna stay with Dave basically no matter what. We believe that we should have all types of content, whether it's content that we like or don't like. We feel like we should represent as many people as possible. And if you don't like it, you can go ahead and leave. And they didn't do that because Netflix is some great company that thinks that we should make sure that everybody's taken care of. Maybe there's some, who knows, right? However, Netflix did it because Dave Chappelle brings money. And Netflix has kind of been losing money as of late. I know I'm invested in Netflix. So they've been losing a little bit of money as of late, but they're starting to get their stuff together. And so they're kind of like, well, if we're having this issue and we know Dave Chappelle, whenever he puts something on here, ratings go up, people come on, subscriptions go up. Yeah, we're not going to choose you over Dave Chappelle. And Dave Chappelle, so when he's in the system, he's on his grind. He's got this thing together. But as soon as it's time for him to go somewhere, you don't know where he at. You say he's still funny, just has more poignant message with him now. Yeah. And he unplugged from the system. He's able to be in it, but not of it. He's able to be in it, not of it. Once again, thank you guys for the likes. We appreciate it. Thank you for the love that you guys are showing. Thank you for all those things that you guys are partaking in and participating in. We really appreciate it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So yeah, we have to recognize what's going on, and we have to be honest to the conversation. We have to be honest about the conversation. And we're now here's the deal. We're looking for the government to teach us about the Bible, right? We're looking for the government to fund our community. We're looking for the government to apologize for things that they did. And by the way, even that, what does that do? Y'all remember Bill Clinton? He apologized for Tuskegee. What did that do? Did they give you anything? Yeah, right? I'm not looking for your apology, and I'm not looking for your money. See, when we recognize that you can make money by yourself, you don't look for them. When you realize that you can find scripture out what it means for yourself, you ain't looking for somebody else to tell you. Right? Thank you very much, Cynthia. We appreciate it. Right? Like that the time has come to stop looking. Right? There's got to be something cultural. The time has come to stop seeking God when you can seek Elohim. Right? The time has come to stop seeking, God when you can seek Elohim. The time has stopped only to be focused on generational curses, right? Know what they are, be able to talk about them, but why are we still doing generational curses? Why are we only focused on generational curses? Rather, why is that our focus? Why has that become the focus of our people? Right? Why has that become the focus of our people? Right? When do we start saying that all we have to do? Watch this, right? And I know it's easier said than done, but faith without works is dead, right? So we have the faith in it, but then we got to put the works together, right? Like let's look up Deuteronomy 28, right? I think that's what you meant because you said 68, but let's look up Deuteronomy 28 because I don't think there's a 68, right? But Deuteronomy 28. Let's look at Deuteronomy 28. What does it say? Right? These are verses 1 through 14, because you can tell me about the 15 through 68 all the time, but we should know about it. We talked about it even yesterday. But what about these blessings here? What about these blessings? Right? You said it's logical. The less people enslaved in their system, it will fail. Yeah. So they don't have to endure what our ancestors. Watch this. So this Deuteronomy 28 is saying this is what you can do, and this is what you are. Right? We don't have to depend on everybody else. Matter of fact, we don't have to depend on anybody outside of the Most High. The Most High has already given you the blueprint. Let's just read his blueprint, right? Let's just be about what he says. But let's just read it. Deuteronomy 28, starting at verse 1. Right? Or and it shall come to pass. So we're going to see if then. If you do this, then I'll do it. It says the same thing in the curses, 15 through 68. If you do this, then this will be your punishment, right? The Most High says, if you do this, then I'll do this. If you'll do your part, then I'll do my part. And we keep looking for them to be if then. They've shown themselves not to be worthy of anything. Deuteronomy chapter 28, starting at verse 1. And it shall come to pass, if thou shalt hearken, that means listen, if thou shalt hearken diligently unto the voice of Yahweh Alachem, to observe do, or to observe by doing, right? To observe to do. So don't just observe it. You're observing it what? To do it. To do what? All his commandments, which I command thee this day, that Yahweh Elohim will set thee on high above all nations above the earth. Guaranteed. And all these blessings shall come on thee and what? And overtake thee. Only if thou shalt hearken unto the voice of Yahweh Elohim. Blessed shalt thou be in the city. But where's your city at? You see here it is. He says, I'm gonna put you on high above all nations. And he says, I'm gonna bless you. He said, all the blessings are gonna not only come on you, but they're gonna overtake you. You ain't gonna have no choice. You're gonna be trying to run away from the blessings sometimes, run away from your favor, run away from what it is that he has for you. And the blessings come, snatch you up. This is what's gonna happen to you, right? And all these things shall come on thee and overtake thee, if thou shalt hearken unto the voice of Yahweh Elohim. Right? Blessed shall thou be in the city, where your city at. And blessed shall thou be in the field, where your field's at. Right? Blessed shall thou be in the city. Where's your city at? Blessed shall you be in the field. Where's your field at? Blessed shall be the fruit of thy body, your seed, and the fruit of thy ground, the seeds that come out that you planted in the ground, and the fruit of thy cattle. Your cattle, even cattle represents your finance, and the increase of thy kind, right? And the flocks of thy sheep. We're talking about, wealth and things. Overall, we're talking about your children. We're talking about the place you stay. We're talking about your city being built. This is what it's talking about. And blessed shall be thy basket and thy store. Shall be what? Thy basket and thy store. When you go shopping, you're going to be able to fill your basket up. And when you go to the store, which is just storage, so when you go to people's storage units out there, you getting all that stuff. How about when you go to your own store, you'll be able to walk out with a bunch of stuff in your own basket. Where's your stuff? Right? Verse 6, blessed shalt thou be when thou comest in, and blessed shalt thou be when thou goest out. So that's a kingdom thing. That's a king thing. That's a queen thing. That's when you go out, everybody's making a big deal about you going out. When you come back in, everybody makes a big deal about you going in. And you have to present yourself a certain way when you go out and come in. That's why Solomon, when he talked to the Most High, when he had the dream, and the Most High said, man, I'll give you anything you want. And, whatever you're going to ask for, just ask for whatever you want. And he didn't ask for riches. What did he do? He asked for wisdom. He said, because I don't know how to go in, nor do I know how to come out like my father David. I don't know how to be in the system, but not of it. I don't know how to go out and then still have a place to come back. I don't know how to go back in a regal manner that everybody knows what to expect from me. And so give me the wisdom to do that. You see that wisdom to do that? That's better than financial gain at times. Verse 7, but wealth is holistic. It's holy. You got to be wealthy in everything, right? Verse 7, Yahweh shall cause thine enemies that rise up against thee to be smitten before thy face, and that they shall come out against thee one way and flee before you seven ways. So your enemies will rise up against you. They're not going to stop. They're not going to stop, but they're going to what? They're going to come before you one way, and they got to flee. They're going to be broken down when they come against you. But you got to have somewhere to allow yourself to be in a position to even be able to do that, right? You're not in a position to where if a police officer comes against one of us and everybody, the closest person is 2 hours away, how are we going to help our brother or our sister out? But if a police officer tries to come and they can't even get through the front gate and they got to go back with their legs between, their tails between their legs, then so be it. But you got to have your city. Where's your city? Where's your field? Where's your store? Verse 8, Yahweh shall command, not just say, not just think, but he shall what? Command. Yahweh shall command the blessing upon thee in thy storehouses, where your storage is, and all I'm sorry, and in all that thou settest thine hand to, everything your hand touches, because it's of him you've observed, and you're doing what he's commanded you to do. Therefore, anything you touch, he has to command the blessing upon everything that you save and everything that you touch. And he shall bless thee in the land which Yahweh Elohim giveth thee. Once again, where's the land? Verse 9, Yahweh shall establish thee a holy people unto himself, sealed unto himself, as he hath sworn unto thee, if thou shalt keep the commandments of Yahweh Elohim and walk in his ways. That's why the same system that says that they are going to give you reparations, or they should, or well, the same system you're looking to give reparations, they're not teaching you that you should have your own land and you should establish yourself as a holy people. And he will, but not establish yourself, excuse me, he will establish you to himself, right? And he's sworn it to you already. It's a promise. If you keep the commandments, they'll say, follow our laws, but then they'll put preachers in place to tell you that the laws have none effect. No, if you keep his laws, why not keep the Most High's laws? If you keep the kingdom of the United States law, why not keep the kingdom of heaven law? Okay? And walk in his ways. Verse 10, and all the people of the earth. How many people of the earth? And all the people of the earth. How many people of the earth? And all the people of the earth shall see that thou art called by the name of Yahweh, if my people who are called by my name, right? And they shall be afraid of thee. Not they shall fear thee. Fear is respect. They shall be afraid of thee. They're supposed to be afraid of you because you represent something that could that could kill their system, rather. When you enter into the kingdom of heaven, you kill off this wicked system. When you enter into proper marriage, you kill off the divorce rate in your people. Oh, that's a word right there. When you enter into proper love for your brother, right, you will be able to make sure that you show your brother right from wrong, right? You'll be able to show your sister right from wrong, but at the same time do so in a loving manner and be able to get along, right? And they shall be afraid of you, right? Verse 11, and Yahweh shall make thee plenteous in constitutional things, or things that Constitution is supposed to provide, or what we would call goods, in the fruit of thy body, and in the fruit of thy cattle, and in the fruit of thy ground, and the land which Yahweh sware unto thy fathers to give thee. Verse 12, Yahweh shall open unto thee his constitutional treasure, his good treasure, the heaven to give the rain unto thy land in his season, and to bless all the work of thine hand, and shalt lend unto many, and thou shalt, watch this, because when we say the lender, not the borrower, we misquote that. That's not exactly what it says, right? I say that, right, even myself, but that's not exactly what it says. What did it say? It says, and thou shalt lend unto many nations. This ain't just you supposed to have enough to be able to give to your friends. That's why you got to start thinking about giving on nations level. We just trying to make sure we get out the hood. No, 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 no. We're supposed to give to many nations. We're supposed to lend to them, right? And we are not supposed to borrow. And by the way, it says thou. The word thou there, if you're looking at English, it's saying that it's this English they're using specifically in the Bible, because they didn't walk around saying these, thuses, and thous, but they did that on the Bible on purpose, because they wanted you to comprehend that when you see a thee or a thus or thou, right, it's different than a you, a ye, or whatever, right? A you, ye, etc. is with the y is plural, but a thee, a thus, a thou is singular. Now the context is, who is he talking to? Yashrael. And he's saying to Yashrael, to Israel, thee, you individually as a nation, you shall what? You're supposed to be thinking on a level where you are lending to nations, unto not just unto nations, unto many nations, and thou, you, Israel, shall not borrow. And Willie Lynch said he reversed the nature. It's not your nature. That's why you don't pay bills that well. It's sorry to say it that way. I'm laughing, but it's true. That's why we don't pay bills like that well. Even if we got a lot of money, we don't like to pay bills, do it. You know, you can be Wesley Snipes and still end up in jail because you can't pay them taxes. But that's not our nature. You're supposed to lend. And if you do something, you ain't supposed to be a slave. You're supposed to be an indentured servant. Have a time limit on how long y'all supposed to be in this contract, and then get up out as soon as possible. And the person who you're in the indentured servitude with, they're supposed to teach you how to become better. How many of y'all got jobs where they teach you how to never have a job again? They don't do that because it's not in their nature, but it's in your nature. Matter of fact, it's in your nature. You don't even like having people under you that much, do you? I can't stand talking to people. I can't say you always got to teach them something. Yeah, you got to teach them because of where we are. But the reality is, it's like, yeah, it's not really in your nature. We should have known this since we were little children. So, Yahweh shall make thee the head and not the tail, and thou shalt be above only. Above only. That means that there shouldn't be nothing else. Thou shalt be above only, and thou shalt not be beneath. If thou, here comes the if again. He's saying you got to do this, you got to have a do blah blah. But he says all this stuff is guaranteed to happen. I've already commanded the blessing. I've already commanded everything your hand touches is going to be blessed. That everything that you save up is going to be blessed. He said, but only if that thou hearken unto the commandments of Yahweh Elohim, which I command thee this day to observe, do, right? To observe towards doing them. Just like he started off in Deuteronomy 28, verses 1 and 2. It's an if, then, if sandwich. If is the bread, then is the meat. If he's covered you with the ifs on the top and the bottom, all you got to do is the then to make the sandwich great, right? Verse 14 ends, it says, thou shalt, or and you shalt not go aside from any of the words which I command thee this day, to the right hand, to the left, or to the left, to go after other gods and to serve them. That's the promise right there. I know I missed a bunch of comments, but that's the promise right there. That's the promise. That's what we should be looking for. You said your Bible was bookmarked to the scripture. Amen. Right? Like that's the promise. That's what's supposed to be over our life. And all that you see stuff that it's giving you the keys. It's giving you the cultural indicators. It's saying observe and do. It's saying where's your land at? Thank you. Thank you, Sister Cynthia. Appreciate it. Thank you, Sister Deja. Right? It's saying where's your land? Observe, do. What do you have set up? What do you have set up to make sure that you lend to many nations? What is that $1 million idea? Where is the community that's going to support it? Who out here is already doing well in business? And what can we do to support them? We already got people doing well in business. If they do well and we support them and they get to become a millionaire, guess what they get to do? If they make $1 million a year and get to a place where they make $1 million a month, but let's be selfish with this, Israel, because I know people don't want you to think that selfish is always bad. But as long as you're not self-centered, you should always think about self, right? You should always make sure, because if self isn't great, you can't take care of others. No, you're not too late, Sister Deja. You're fine. You said the most high cities are exact opposites of the cities of the system. Oh yeah, amen. Yeah, the most high cities are different. Yeah. So all the stuff he's talking about, like let's say somebody gets to a place and they're making $1 million a year. Let's say they're making $1 million a month, right? And we help to bless them and blow them up like that. And that person turns around and guess what? All they do is they obey the law. They turn around and they say, I'm gonna give a tithe. They say, I'm gonna give $100,000 to what Yashtil is doing. That means that Yashtil straight. We supported somebody and lifted them up. Right? You got to do this as a group. Where's your city at? Where are your people at? Where's your culture at? Where's your community at? Where's the virtual real estate that we're going to put together? Whatever it is, where's the stuff that we're going to make sure that we do, that we can ensure that we're lifting each other up? I need Sister Shima to get a business together and get it going. I need, I need, Cynthia to have stuff together and get it going. I need people to be able to grow food. I need Sister Beverly to do well and get not just her stuff on the show, but to have more. I need we should be using even social media as virtual real estate. Like we should be looking for each other's stuff. As soon as I see somebody post something, I watch, a little bit of it. I don't have time to watch the whole things all the time because I be busy. But if I get a chance, sometimes I go through TikTok and all I'm doing is looking through SOC stuff. All right, cool, this, that, or whatever. Okay, somebody put something up. All right, cool. And when I have time, to actually sit down and actually like share it, because I got to watch whole videos and stuff. So if I get 10, 15 minutes to do so, cool. Okay, let me share people's stuff. Let me put stuff out there. Let me put stuff in the comment section. At least they know somebody's listening. Let me put hashtag find Kofi on something, because people look for stuff that my name is attached to. Whatever the case might be, like, let me build us up, because as you built, then I'm built, and greater things shall you do. If I'm doing things correctly, so eventually, at some point, people should start passing me. At some point, people should start saying, "Wow, that's a better teacher than Kofi." If I've done what I'm supposed to do. Now, it ain't gonna be easy because I'm not gonna stop learning, right? But I'm saying at some point, there should be somebody that y'all look at and go, "Wow, like they taking what he did to the next level." It's about kingdom establishment. And we don't have that as a culture. We're asking questions, but we're not coming from the proper cultural concept. Well, even with that, we want to help develop the skill. Right? You say you're not skilled. Then as a community, what are we going to do to help to develop it? Thanks for being part of community elders. You said as a group that's key, it seems everyone knows but us. Yeah. Matter of fact, using that term, a key. Like, a key is something people just started trying to do it. I forget what they tried to make this new Afrocentric term for it or whatever recently. But, people had keys a long time ago. They come from other countries, and you come in. If you got 12 families, a lot of times, sometimes the 12 families might get a big house and all 12 families live in the house, right? Like, because there was no shame in the game. We used to do those things. We used to grow up, and it wasn't uncommon to be like, oh yeah, 9 people sleep in that bedroom over there, and five guys, sleep, the 9 girls sleep in this bedroom, and 5 guys sleep on the floor in the living room, and mama and daddy, they sleep in the room with the 2-year-old and the 1-year-old or something like that. But then there's these other children, this other family that live there. That used to be us. Now we look at that as if we're too great for it. But that used to be something like, hey, we building right now. It's okay to be here. We don't despise the small beginning. We don't look at it as something that's bad. But even using that word key, it used to be something where you come home from another country, you had a key. And basically the way that worked is that, let's say you had 12 families, everybody said we're going to give $1,000 a month. Every family's bare minimum got to give $1,000 a month, right? And so at the end of 6 months, they might say, okay, cool, we got a key. And so at the end of 6 months, if you got 12 families giving that's 120,000 times 6. What is that? That's 600,000, 700,000. So 720,000, I think. Right. And so let's say you got $720,000. Guess what they do? They draw out of a hat, basically. Right. And so you got 720,000, you draw out of a hat. And then you get, or I'm sorry, not 720,000. I said 1,000 a month. Sorry. So you got 72,000. Excuse me. I don't know what I was doing. Or is it 72,000 a month? Yeah, $72,000. So family gets to draw. One family draws, they get 72,000. You do what you do, go get a home, go get some land, go do whatever, and do that or whatever, right? And then you do that with all 12 families, and then now eventually all 12 families have 72,000. Now, guess what you do when families get more? Also, the families that have more, they also still help out some of the other families who have less, right? Not to the place where they mess up their family, their specific family that's got to now have their own, a mortgage or whatever. Or if they don't have a mortgage, maybe they bought land cheap and built a home cheap and all that, but they're going to support one another, right? Once they finish that, then when everybody's got their bread up, you keep the key going. So now instead of 1,000 a month, you say, well, shoot, we got to a place where people own businesses, and maybe a few of these families gotten in contact and said, hey, $3,000 gets us to be part of it. We can own a McDonald's, we can own a Burger King, something like that, right? So they say, cool, well, we'll just go ahead and do that. So they go through that together, and they own the stuff together, and they go to another level together. And when they finish, everybody's got more money, so now they increase it. They say, hey, look, now all 12 families, we're gonna make it 100,000. We're gonna make it 100,000 per month. And while we do that, so because we're making money like that now, let's make this 100,000 a month. So every family gonna put in 100,000 every 6 months. We come back, now we talking about $500,000 is the draw. Over $500,000 is the draw, right? A matter of fact, forget over $500,000, millions, right? Is the draw. So now we making millionaires every 6 months, and the millionaires take care of the people who are high class members of societies now, and then we keep it going. So after 3 times of doing this, right? We haven't even gone a generation when this would have happened. We haven't even gone 40 years yet. You have 3, 4, 5 times where you're able to repeat the same thing. Now you got people where you're taking care of people in other countries. You're taking care of people in your country. You're doing all those things, right? People have been doing that for years, for generations. We used to do it, but they taught us to be against each other so much. That's kingdom principle. And most of the questions that we're going to receive, most of the things we're looking for, most of the answers, it comes from culture. Your culture is established in that. Remember Moses, when you went outside, Moses might have been right outside when you came outside to say what's up to. He wasn't separate. Remember, the Levites could be able to focus on just teaching and assembling and doing all this stuff because that's all that they did, right? They weren't allowed to have jobs in the field. Judah could focus on praise, right? Because that's basically what they did. You know what I'm saying? They were able to pass those things down. So you had the Levites and you had Judah who worked together, but Levi had to focus more on the word. So guess what? Levi, we don't expect you to do anything, but you best be invested in us. It was a culture. It's a sad thing now that where we don't even think about, we don't think about the fact that, yeah, how are you going to have teachers that teach well and they can't focus on teaching? How are you going to have people that do praise and worship correctly and they can't even study what the Levites say because they're busy doing everything else? How are you going to have people that are great warriors and you don't even have Benjamin? Right? How are you going to talk about that? Like, we focus on Naphtali, we like athletic people, but we don't think about the fact that, like, yo, like, there's other people that need to be focused on. We don't think about, think about Yashua and all the people that came together. You had somebody to think about money, right? You had a treasurer, you had a fisherman, right? You had people that could get food. You had a tax collector, somebody that could make sure that they were thinking about things financially as well in a different route. You had a physician. Somebody got sick. Yashua didn't always need to lay hands on you because physician might be able to say, "Oh yeah, go out and eat that." It was part of the community. They had a traveling community. We just think of it as 12 apostles or 12 disciples. They had a traveling community with them. How important was that for us to know that we had a traveling community? When Yashua showed up, he showed up with a community, right? You had people to do secretary stuff. You had people that were skilled enough to be able to write down what happened so that we can have discussions based off of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, right? Like, this was a family environment. This was a family environment. This was a family environment. We don't think about it like that, but it was a family environment. It should be a family environment. When we go around somewhere, we should be rolling deep. Why is it that we get mad? Look, I don't think we should get mad at the person, the rapper, whoever, the artist who walks around with an entourage. I think we should be frustrated more so that we didn't teach them how to use the entourage correctly. But there's nothing wrong with making sure that there's somebody, if you're a millionaire, why not have somebody that's there? And why not give jobs to people? Like, if you're a millionaire, why not have somebody that drives you? Or you're actually, they would be a driver because they're paid to drive you, right? So why not have a driver? Why not have somebody that protects you and your family? Why not have people that make sure that you give to charities correctly? Why not have somebody that's there to make sure that you make positive decisions? Why not have somebody that's there? Some people have people that's there to make sure that they do their hair or whatever. And those people, when they do their hair, guess what? They turn that into, being millionaires themselves because they're getting paid a lot of money to do something. So they start opening up their own businesses. Yeah. And we got to start. That's why we're saying, where's the start? That's why we're saying help. We have a system set up. And if it's not us, if you find somebody else is better, fine. Go find somebody who's doing it, is my point. We hope that you would help us in our endeavors because we are doing it out of the kindness of our heart. And we really believe that Yahweh wants us to do well. And we're doing everything best we can to make sure that we're about his word. But even if you find somebody else, all I'm saying is at some point we got to do something. And these questions and these answers and all these different things, they're coming from a place of where we are not willing to discuss the culture. Is not number one. Our culture says take care of each other. That is the goal, right? I promise you, I do not get paid. What people might think I get paid for or something like that. I don't really get paid for this. I don't get paid for a lot of the one-on-one stuff. I promise you. You know, I don't get paid. You know, I don't even charge what we should charge. Like we're doing sessions that are better than some classes that you guys have that aren't even in existence in your schools, teaching you things about, you know, sovereignty and stuff that you would have thought they would have taught you in your business classes or your, you know, whatever it is, right? Teaching you things and asking for donations. We're not even asking because we know that Yahweh is going to take care of us at the end. But you know, like we should invest in people. There are people here. That's why we mention people's businesses on here all the time. Like invest in each other. Some of you are paying Amazon to give you, you know, crappy versions of shea butter and stuff. Anyways, you might as well get the real deal that some people are getting delivered straight from Israel and other parts of Africa. Like you might as well just get the real deal from them. You know what I'm saying? Hey, how you doing? You know, I speak. Like it might as well be at some point at some place. That's why like I'm so proud to be associated with this because like yeah, like I'm telling you, me think if somebody told me just last year, as much as we've had to restart and keep getting pages taken down on those platforms and all this, and we don't even cuss, fuss, do whatever, right? But if somebody had told me literally that from the Carolinas all the way to Cali, that we're going to be able to give people food without even having the land we're going to 100% own yet, which we hope to have by October. That's the goal. I would have thought you were stupid. I'm just going to be honest. I would have thought, why are you saying that? This and that. I'm just being honest. I didn't have the faith in. But when I saw the community said, hey, yeah, it's not about you. It's not even about what you believe. You know what? If you started it, I would do it. And then you guys actually started doing what you're saying. And even if we haven't got the land that we own yet, the fact that some of you who own land keep saying, yeah, come on. Come on here. Come on and do this. Come on and get this food. Come on and do this. Like some of y'all are buying each other's products and stuff, helping them to put it on the shelves around the world. Like you got to recognize like that is powerful. That's how we're supposed to be. That's how you're supposed to represent. That's kingdom. When people talk about all this other word and give you the hooping and hollering and all that, look, this real kingdom is that if my sister starts a business, like I should be able to say, man, I helped in some way, shape, or form, even if it's words of affirmation. I did something to improve her business. You said Black Wall Street, yeah. Well, in Black Wall Street, once again, if we be honest, so Black Wall Street wasn't about protecting themselves. Black Wall Street was still making sure that their business had to go through others before they started giving to the world. They could have already done business with the world and not done business with those around them. They could have gated off the community, you know. But once again, we're thinking, oh, things are safe, you know, and we can learn from those things. You know, I say this all the time. Think about when you think about the Rosewoods and the Black Wall Streets and the um, you know, and I'm forgetting the one Wilmington, North Carolinas, and the Philadelphias, and there's Tuskegee's, and if you think about the people like the Marcus Garveys and the Medgar Evers, yeah, I always think about the four M's together: the Marcus Garvey, the Medgar Evers, the Malcolm X, the Martin Luther King Jr.'s, you know, the Dr. Amos Wilson's, you know, the Dr. Francis Cress Welsing's of the world, you know, all these different people. We could go down this list, right? If we think about all these different people, one of the problems that's happened is that we never brought them together. Even if we supported them from afar, we never really brought them together. Remember, Malcolm gets killed right after he went to meet with Martin, and Malcolm got killed right before that. When he went to meet with Martin. Martin was in prison, so he met with Martin's people. And remember, right before that, he had just came back from Africa, and the same day he was killed, you know, because he was going to go to the United Nations and sue on behalf of us here in the diaspora. And the guy that he met with in Africa got killed, who was going to go and sue on behalf of the United Nations for Africans, right? So we were going to be united in the front, and Martin Luther King Jr. was going to be behind it too. It was going to be all hands on deck, right? And we waited till it was too late to come together, right? Thank you. Is it Fudge? Fudge, appreciate it, right? But we waited too long. Could you imagine the wealth? Like, watch this. Could you imagine a system outside of this world, a system outside this system? Could you imagine a system that says we're going to make sure that we have the protection of the Black Panthers, right? We're going to make sure that we have a mindset to be kind and courteous, like Martin Luther King Jr. We're going to have a mindset of nationalism, like Malcolm X. We're going to have a mindset of taking care of the diaspora, like Kwame and Nkrumah. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you need to research it, brother. Right? If we were to have a mindset that says that we are able to be Israel and do what the Bible says while making sure that we truly enact it, like a Marcus Garvey. If you don't believe it, go look up the original Black national anthem. Right? Can you imagine? I'm just saying, yeah, they were young and stuff, but I'm saying, can you imagine all these things coming together? Can you imagine we have the wealth of Tulsa, that we learn what happened and we don't allow people to give us medication that's not for us, like Tuskegee? Like we realize that just because we've got public officials in place, that we will not let that be the end all be all, like Wilmington, North Carolina. Can you imagine if we take all these things we've learned and put them together? We still have people that march with weapons but ain't putting together no land. We still have people that have a lot of land but don't have any protection. We still have people that have land but don't put together education. Can you imagine if we start being wholly one? You said that Garvey have a big impact on America. Garvey is straight up out of New York. You can't look at a lot of people. You can't look at Malcolm X and not think Marcus Garvey. Malcolm X's father was a Garveyite, right? You can't look at Martin Luther King Jr. and not realize there's some similarities and stuff to Marcus Garvey. Black business, Marcus Garvey is the first person to get us to start thinking black business as a people, not just as a family unit here or there, but supporting black business as a people. How come? Because he had ships that were going back and forth. Matter of fact, they blew up his ships. They messed up the ships that they had, but they had ships going back and forth between Europe and Africa. Had us in uniform. Had us singing the Black national anthem. You think that Lift Every Look, and I get it. Some people like Lift Every Voice and sing as far as, musically and stuff like that. But we actually have a Black national anthem. Ethiopia took it on and changed the lyrics a little bit, a lot of it actually, right? But we have these things together, and we've never put them together, including, once again, biblically. We're so busy listening to what everybody else has to say about the Bible with us and looking at everybody else's culture and everybody else's language and what everybody wants us to do with it. The whole thing, even when people, I've gotten on this before, when people talk about gender, right? And they talk about the Bible. People get upset and frustrated. They talk about gender. They want to have these gender conversations concerning the Bible, this and that, or whatever. I promise you, like when you start talking about homosexuality and this word here didn't mean this and blah, blah, you're not even looking at the Avra or the original or the Hebrew word. You're looking at somebody Greek who had a problem in the Greek because they were sitting there messing with little boys. So they put in a Greek word to mean homosexual because they didn't want you taking on that jamcha or gender. Gender does not mean male or female. That means the style that male and females use for each culture. And so if you're going to have the Bible, they changed the word there to be able to say, yo, stop messing with little boys. That's what they did. But that's not what the original word meant. So when you're trying to talk about homosexuality, that word doesn't, you're right, that word isn't originally in there. Why? Because in Yastil, in Israel, in North Africa, still, by the way, that's not our culture. It doesn't mean that if you are a homosexual that we think you should die. But we're having questions and answers and conversation about stuff that has nothing to do with our culture. Has nothing to do with our culture. Yeah, maybe we can talk about that, right? If we do something especially specifically on homosexuality. Oh, by the way, those who are on the podcast, I think we got like a minute before it's going to kick us out. So thank you for being on. I'm not sure how much longer we'll be on TikTok or YouTube, but you can feel free to join us over there. We appreciate you. Thank you so much. Right. But yeah, if we do homosexuality, we're going to have to make sure moderators are on point that day. I might have to give you guys a specific date so y'all can see if y'all can help out on that day because, LGBTQ plus, if you say that I disagree with you, it's akin to saying that I'm, people turn that into I must hate you, and that's a wild place to be. You know what I'm saying? Like that's a really wild place to be where I can disagree with you means that I hate you. I disagree with you means I must say you're going to hell. Now, I will admit that there are people out there who do speak like that. So we can't act like there's no reason for them to think it, but to hear my words and to hear what we say in this community and to legit try to say that we say anything that means that like we promote bullying of it is just patently false. It's absolutely false. And it is what it is. But yeah, so maybe we can make that a part of frequently asked questions series. I know it's something we got to talk about. So if we're gonna do FAQ, we can't do FAQ and just stroll past that one, right? Just like we can't stroll past abortion at some point. That's gonna have to come up too, and that's gonna be a difficult one to deal with too, right? But we're dealing with somebody else's culture. I'm probably gonna mention abortion just as much as I can through other ones, because if we do, I'm just being honest. Like we got to be realized, like we're gonna have to be in our P's and Q's. But it's they say about Chappelle, they say about everybody. If you disagree, like Chappelle said something. What really got everybody frustrated about him at first? About it, it didn't become as big a thing yet when he first said it, but I can't remember which special. It was on one of the Netflix specials, but he said something like, um, yeah, I hear you, Roderick. But he said something along the lines of, "I'm not changing up my pronoun game for all these people, right?" And he told a story like about he revealed what's behind the curtain, and he said, "Yo, I've been to some of these stuff where they call you the N word, and I know they call you the N word because I've been there where I've made enough money where they let me behind the curtain. They told me they call you the N word, right?" And he said that he went to a party, right? And there was a guy. Some of y'all might remember this joke, right? But it's based off a real situation that he went through. He said he went to a party, and there was a guy or whatever, and the guy was, looked like they were on drugs, they were acting up or whatever. He was wearing a dress, and the guy passed. And I'm going to say a word, that is sensitive. If you got children, maybe you don't want your children to hear this word. How you doing, Sister Deborah? Thanks for making it over. So if you're sensitive about it, like I'm gonna say a word that you might be, it's well, I guess you can say it's a curse word for a little child, or or a word they shouldn't hear as a little child. So if you want to go ahead and put headphones on or turn down the volume for maybe a minute or so, feel free to do so, right? But he says that basically the guy passes out, and when the guy passes out, he's on the ground. And so he comes over to check on him, and he says, "Yo, is he oh my, he's like, oh my God, is he all right?" And they go, "She is fine," right? And so he's like, "Oh, okay, well, um, just to let maybe you might want to let her know that her dick is hanging out of her skirt." Right? Like, because it's like, you can tell me she and it's not, but you see what I'm saying? So all these, and then he said, "I'm not changing up my pronoun game for anybody else," right? You know, he said, "I'm not going to change my pronoun game just because you want me to or whatever." Like, that's like, if that's a he, it's a he, right? Now he's kind of sort of changed since then, especially since he had a friend of his that died, who was trans and died because I think this person, he committed suicide because it was a trans person that was willing to defend him, right? And so the trans community, the LGBTQ plus community, like came on this man who, identified as a woman and who stood up for Dave Chappelle, and that person ended up not being taken. I think they ultimately killed themselves for it, right? And people got mad and upset when he talked about that. You said he is what he is, yeah, but it's like it's there's a lot of that going on where people are just being honest. It's like, yo, like people have this weird thing and they don't want to be honest, but they don't even want to admit. And all the stuff you're talking about or whatever, like, you can't, when you go to a doctor, you can call yourself she all you want. But, if we're talking about your prostate and you got prostate cancer, if you go to the doctor and you say to the doctor, if the doctor says, "Yo, we got to deal with this prostate cancer," and you say, "Well, I don't identify as a man," that don't make sense. We're not saying that if you feel like you should sexually be obligated. What we're saying is there's something that doesn't make sense if we're going to act like it has nothing to do with you just because you don't identify, right? There's a lot of black people that say, "I don't identify as black." You said, "Do I think that we're one race?" I think that we're all human beings. Race is a social construct. If you deal with the word race is RACE. It just simply means that you're dealing with a competition. Racism, ISM, is a system, right? So you put that together, you have a system based off of competition. But the social construct of race started happening not because of people saying that there's more than one race for any great reasoning. It started really because you got people that could work in the sun and do things that other people couldn't do. So if you got people that can do things that other people can't do, then you got to enslave them more than the others. And when you enslave them, and you got things like Christianity and things like that, you got to tell people that these people are not people. So you have to come up with doctrine. You have to come up with doctrine, right? That's why we got to the position that we in. That's the fight. So, but if you want to talk social construct, like, yeah, I believe if you want to go by what the social construct is, because here's the deal. We can say somebody made up the social construct, but the social construct has real results. Now, do I believe that there's cultures that we should believe? I don't think that we should be colorblind. I don't believe, if you look a certain way, if you're darker than me, lighter than me, if I say I love you, I love all of you, including including the biggest organ that you have, which is your skin. you know. So I believe, so if you're Irish and you're Irish lass with red hair, hey, you can be a beautiful Irish lass with red hair. If you're a beautiful, if you're a beautiful Blackfoot slash, um, uh-oh, why am I forgetting this term? I'm trying to say Shemitic, but that's not what I'm looking for. Well, a Blackfoot, Shemitic, and Floridian girl. I can't remember what my wife's other thing is. I don't know why I'm having a mind. I see John Horse and everything. I know the tribe I'm looking at, but I can't think of the name for some reason. But not Cherokee. I'm Cherokee actually, but my wife is Seminole. That's the word I'm looking for. Seminole, Blackfoot, Shemitic. Beautiful. Um, Shui woman. You know what I'm saying? Like, I should be able to see everything in you and be able to love everything. How do I love you and not love your skin? So I think there's two different things that are going on where somebody says, well, my skin color is something that I have to start talking about because you guys have told me for so long that my skin color made me bad. But at the same time, just because I'm willing to say I love my black skin, it doesn't mean that I hate your humanity. Oh, yeah, Choctaw. Okay, yeah, you cousins up there. You cousins with us. That's right. So, these are things we're asking questions about this stuff culturally, and we're not taking it, where it needs to be. We're not looking at where it needs to be. Hey, how you doing, Miss Mac? Thanks for coming on over. We're not taking this to where it needs to be. Right? We have a cultural thing that's happening, and we're not willing to have cultural conversation, cultural curriculums. Right? We're not willing to say, yeah, culturally, there's something that goes on. People say, don't call yourself black. Black is something that's made up. No, Moorish people were okay with being black. Negro, which means black, that only means black, and they hate it in Spain and now in America, because Negro is one of the most ancient names you have for West African people, and don't forget that West African and North African people were over Spain way more than in history, way more than Spain has ever been, and way more than Rome has ever been. Yeah, somebody else has asked me about that. I'm supposed to actually be talking with them about it today, about the World Health Organization. I got to be careful because the World Health Organization is the reason why YouTube channel got taken down last time. They told YouTube that they said I was saying untruths. I'll say this, man. I've heard a lot about it. I've read a lot about it. It's more the same. It's more the same. Thank you, Henry. Right? It's more the same. Like, we're not really doing anything new. There's not really any news. If you know how the Pope works, if you know how Ashkenazi works, if you know how the Rothschilds work, if you know how Khazarian works, excuse me, if you know how all these things work, you're kind of dealing with the same thing. That's why people have been saying, make sure you got your food together. People have been saying, make sure you're sovereign. People have been make sure your paperwork's together. People have been saying, stop using social security number. People have been saying, that's, comprehend marks of the beast. The beast is the government. A mark is anything that remember the mark of the beast. They tell you in Revelation chapter 13 at the end, read the last few verses. They tell you that the mark's going to be necessary to get food. It doesn't mean that you can't have food, but you got to live outside the system. Like we talked about with Deuteronomy 28, where's your land? Where's your land? The beast is the government. The second beast is the Antichrist spirit. The Revelation chapter 12, the dragon, that's the devil. And all three work in one. A trinity, if you will. All three work in one. The devil works with the government, right? Remember, it even tells you that the government, the beast came out of the water. Remember, water in dreams means people. Like they're telling you, they gave you the game, and you have to be able to live a life that's unmarked. Are you unmarked, or you got to be marked by the right person, right? Do you have a tav on you, right? Anything that's going to marry, like you got to comprehend the beast is a government that came from the people that worship the serpent. That's why the water came out of the serpent's mouth. That same water is what the beast came out of. That's the government. And then there's a second beast that it says has the horns of a lamb, so it has some familiarity to you because it's going to use scripture in a way, but it's going to also use it to be able to destroy. It's an antichrist spirit. All three working together as one, and you're getting the same thing. Like I wish it was like, I don't have all the stuff. I tried to do a deep dive into it, but the more I dove into it, I was like, this is just more of the same. And it's just getting stronger. We have this belief system that things are going to get better as far as the world. The world is the world is wild, and that's what they're supposed to do. The problem is the kingdom. These kingdom folk are wilding. We think we think we doing what we're supposed to do, but we wilding too. We out here doing the same thing they doing. They're trying to figure out why people don't want to be around us, right? But the world is wild, and they're supposed to get wilder and wilder and wilder. They're supposed to have more lasciviousness. They're supposed to be more lustful. They're supposed to be more killers. They're supposed to think of themselves more highly than they should. They're supposed to be more into, being mediums or witches. By the way, media, one of the reasons we should colonize media is because media is the go-between. So media is like a medium. Media is like a crystal ball almost. Matter of fact, they use crystals in your phone. They use crystals in your stuff that they're using, right, for them to function. Matter of fact, they're using melanin inside of some of these crystals as well, right? We're seeing more of the same. I'm sorry, Sister Deborah, you said you read about a pregnant woman who identifies as a man with fully grown beard, saying he didn't completely transition because he knew he wanted to be a mother. Yeah, it's confusing. But that's the system. As a World Health Organization, like they're basically just going to do more of the same. I personally, now this is belief, and I can't say I have all the facts to back this up, but I'm just looking at things that have happened over and over again. So I very rarely give opinion, right? So I'm telling you, this is opinion. This is not contextual fact right here. This is me opining a little bit, okay? If I just be honest. Personally, though, I find it. I think that we're putting extreme amount of fear or being afraid into this, and that's partially why they make these decrees and stuff to get you to be afraid, because they'll write stuff but they still don't enact it until they think that you'll fully fall for it. I don't believe, as much as everybody's ready to allow a lot of their freedom and free will to be taken away from them, I do not personally believe that they can go all the way where people think they're going yet, even if it'll be written. Like, remember, Clinton and had signed off on stuff where your rights and your free will were going to be taken away a long time ago. They had done that a long time ago, and still don't have certain things that they agreed to yet being done. People talk about martial law, for example. Like, people don't recognize you've been in martial law since the Emancipation Proclamation of 1862. Right? You've been in martial law. Okay, thank you, Sister Rhonda. Sorry, I didn't catch that. But you've been in martial law since 1862. Because anytime a president writes those decrees that y'all pay so much attention to, he can't do that unless it's martial law. Now, that's one of the things you can actually even use in court. Some people use this in court to where they'll start forcing, they won't say outright, are we in martial law, but they'll keep asking questions to where eventually the only answer left can be that you have to be in martial law, and the judges will go ahead and let you go because they can't admit to you you're in martial law. Like, the only reason why all these presidential things that y'all keep paying attention to and stuff, but it doesn't, but so we don't even comprehend a lot of things that are written in law still can't be enacted. Why? Because even though you think the president has to sign off on it, at the end of the day, your signature is the most powerful. They are the public servants. You are the masters, right? Everybody's taking sovereignty with us. Y'all know that by now, right? We start off every class with that, right? You are what? You are the master, and they are the public servant. So you have to give them permission. Right? Just like the devil has to be given permission by you to do whatever. Talking about the devil made me do it. No, the devil has to ask you. The devil has to talk you into even But the devil can't make you do anything. If the devil's making you do something, it's because you told him it's okay for him to be able to function using your body. You got to sign off. So that's what's happening. That's what's going to happen. That's why you're seeing cities built where people are going to live underground and stuff, and there's going to be false sunlight and stuff. But that's why you've seen them testing stuff now, where they've been building these huge apartment complexes, right? And when you go there, all over the world, not just all over the country, all over the world, you see these huge apartment complexes come out of nowhere, and you see all these stores on the bottom, right? And you see gyms and everything on stuff, and you see places where you can have parties and everything. You don't have to leave your apartment to do a thing. Now you can work from home. You don't have to go outside in the sun. And if you want to get sun, hey, just go to the roof. You don't have to do anything. We got our police officers. We got security on every floor. You don't even have to worry about police officers. Everything is going to be controlled within these places. And anybody like us that says we'd rather live outside of them, we're going to be the ones that are considered to be evil. They're setting it up, but they still can't do it fully because they know you're not ready all the way. They just tried. That's what I was telling people. I was telling people the whole time when you saw COVID coming and when they were going to put you on lockdown, I said, this is an attempt. They want to see where you're at. Right. And a lot of people I'm not the only person that knew this. Right. But this is an attempt. They want to see where you're at. They want to see how much you'll give up your right. They want to see if you'll stay inside. They want to see if you'll be afraid. They want to see if we say that you can't work, if you get a shot, will you go run to get the shot? Real talk. And they tested it out on you. And they found that, okay, it's not what we thought it was. A lot of people is kind of 50-50. Right, we still, you're right, that like we messed up. We still got them 2 Republican, 2 Democrats, so now we got to figure out a way to make them all kind of come towards saying the shot is okay. So they went away from it, right? But they even have it where, hey, like maybe we'll tell them that it's something that you have to do to get in school, and it's something that you got to take every year. But hey, you guys can walk around again or whatever, anyways. And so hey, maybe some people loosen their stance on it now because it's just a part of life. We forgot about it. They're not going to say it's a big deal anymore. Yeah, they want to see who will obey. Just like the Most High likes to see who you obey. The devil doesn't do it too much different because he learned from the Most High. He's doing it for a different reason. He's doing it to cause chaos and stuff, but he's out there trying to see what you gonna do. What can I get you to sign off on? That's what the government's doing. It's his government. It's his beast. The people who are in charge of that beast, in charge of that government, they worship him. That's what Revelation tells you. Revelation chapter 12. It tells you that the devil is the one who's in charge. He spits the people out of his mouth, the water out of his mouth. They try to attack Yahshua. They can't get to us because we've gone somewhere else to separate ourselves. And therefore, the Most High is protecting us, as he said he would in Deuteronomy 28, verses 1-14. Therefore, you get to chapter 13, it starts talking about this beast that's there. And the devil's trying to attack the remnant still in chapter 12, who hasn't come into the knowledge of the Most High. The beast is there to make sure that that the devil's government is established. And you got a second beast, an Antichrist spirit. And he's going to, and both of them make sure that they lift up the standard that is the devil. And then it says the second beast, right, the Antichrist spirit, even has the horns of a ram, the horns of a sheep, so that you sit there and you think, oh, okay, well, they must be saying something. They must be thinking something's right. They quote scripture when they do it. They say God bless America when they do it, even though we don't even know what God means, right? And who your God is. Your father God is George Washington, and George Washington was pulling teeth out your mouth. This is all scripture, right? Talking about 1,260 days. Well, a day in a dream equates to a year. What happened 1,260 year period? You had in 538 AC, you had the Justinian decree that was by the Roman Catholic Church that said that what Justinian said in the 400s, we're now saying that we have the power to enact it, and they weren't taken out of power until Napoleon killed the Pope, right? 1798. John tells us in Revelation chapter 13 that one of the heads of the beast looks like it actually was killed off and it came back. Isn't it interesting that the Pope was killed off, but it came back? You see what I'm saying? We're not looking at things cultural. We don't know how to ask the questions, and the questions that we're asking are not based off of kingdom. They're not based off of something that's reality. We don't even know how to look up these things. Why does it keep saying 1,260 days or time, times, and half a time? Why is it that Christ was so big on his on what he did to serve, starting a time, times, and half a time? Why did he wait till he was 30 to be a rabbi and then give you time, times, and half a time? Like, these are things that are cultural. And when we ask these questions, people have no clue, because we're looking at a system that says we're not going to teach you any of that. We only reward those who teach to make sure that this union is preserved. And we don't even know we're in martial law. That's the only reason why they could do what they did. People said, oh, they're getting close to martial law. The government was like, we're not in martial law. We're not in martial law. We're not in martial law. It's like, no, like, you are in martial law. That's the only reason why they can do what they're doing now. You are in martial law. You're under martial law. That's the only reason why the Emancipation Proclamation could be written. And everything has been written by presidential order, executive order since martial law. You said, what's up with the seven seals? The seven seals are things simply that were there that were not to be revealed unless they were revealed and opened by Yahshua for us to be able to see the mysteries. There was, who can open up the seal? Nobody but the Lamb, right? He said, I cried because I didn't know. And then somebody said, here comes the Lamb who's worthy. And then you start seeing the first seal, right? The first four seals deal with the four horsemen. What do those four horsemen deal with? Killing people and taking over, conquering just for conquering's sake, making sure that they deal and making money off of your not being able to eat and things like that. And then ultimately using sickness and pestilence to be able to control. Right after that, you have a seal revealed that says that people are waiting on the Most High to be able to take vengeance for us. And he says, hey, time is not yet, but it's coming. Right? The sixth seal release, and you're dealing with you're dealing with basically like the things that people worship, like the sun and the moon and all that stuff being taken care of and stuff, and realizing there's nobody higher than the Most High. We're coming to stuff like that now, where we're realizing, that everything goes back to the Most High. The seventh seal is when Yahshua must be sealed, right? There were four winds that were going to be released or whatever upon the earth, one from the east, one from the north, one from the west, one from the south. That's Revelation chapter 7, verses 1-3. And there's this angel that comes out and says, oh, stop. A fifth angel comes out and says, stop. Before we do that, we got to make sure that Israel's sealed. How would you know it's Israel? Read the next few verses. The next few verses talk about the 12 tribes. After you finish seeing those 12 tribes are sealed, then it says everybody else who's grafted in, they can go ahead and be about the same thing that we are. But we have to follow the same thing. We have to be dedicated to the law. How you doing, Marky? Well, I would say you look at those seals. Do you think that there are people that are conquering for conquering's sake? Have those seals been opened? Do you think there are people that are conquering for conquering's sake? Do you think that there are people who are taking over and being violent? Do you think that there are people who are making money off of making sure, like, do you think, are there countries to where, like when it talks about I got to make sure I got my horsemen together. When you deal with like the scales and stuff like that, and you look at what those words mean, it basically translates to like, are there people that we know of to where they're paying, thousands of dollars sometimes, or hundreds of dollars at least for bread? Are there people that are dying, and we're talking about stuff as far as pestilence and COVID, and is it man-made and things like that? Because it's patented. So you can't patent anything that the Most High didn't create. That's how natural law works. That's universal law. That's kingdom law. That's substantive law, procedural law. You can't patent something that you didn't make. We can see these things open. People that are saying we're waiting on vengeance. Are we not seeing people talk about that? Remember this person, say her name, say his name. Sixth seal. Are people realizing that the sun, moon, even like Ishtar stuff and all that stuff, and lunatic stuff, which literally not lunatics as far as you're crazy. Lunatics are people that are into the moon worship and stuff like that. Are we seeing that there might be a little problem with some of the things that we said and some of the things that we're about? And we're seeing that Yahweh, there's got to be something true to this, even in the way his name is spelled, and how you have 10-5-6-5 in his name, and therefore you can't even have your DNA without 10-5-6-5, and how we're seeing tubs and T cells and other things that help people to be able to make sure that they heal their bodies and things like that. Like, we're starting to see something's there. Now we see a seal where people are starting to come back and talk about, let's have a discussion about this real Yashadale thing and Zionist thing and Ashkenazi thing and Rothschild thing. And okay, it is the black horse. Yeah, so that's what I was looking for. The black horse is the one that deals with the scales, measuring out to see if you even allowed to eat. You dying because you can't even get food. That's part of what it talks about. These are things that we know are happening. Oh, well, first of all, thank you, TikTok. What is it, 31179? Secondly, I'm just using Well, I won't say I'm only using the Bible, but I mean, I believe in the Bible. I study it a lot. I take, taking certain classes and stuff. We teach certain classes on Zoom and things like that as well. We do certain studies like Bible studies and things outside of our normal Zoom, but we're on, you can find out stuff on YouTube. You can get in contact with us through our website on TikTok, or if you want to look on our YouTube channel, but you can find that through TikTok. Just go on TikTok and find stuff. But I mean, I'm simply just using contextual facts. I try not to get, into these things. You said, how do you get on the Zoom? Contact us. Look on the website where it says TikTok. On our TikTok page, go to where it says website, click on the link tree, click on classes, or just click on anything that has our information. But if you want to click on classes, click on that, look at the classes and things, and then you can fill a sheet out for us, or look at the stuff that says ways to contact us. Contact us. We'd love to be able to talk to you. You know, so we have to we have to be in a position. We have to be in a position to think about these things, right? We have to be in a position to where we're learning about these things, we're comprehending these things. We even have Patreon, things of that nature as well. So we're on every day. I take Wednesdays off, but we're on basically we're on every day except for Wednesday at 8 a.m. Eastern New York time. We're on every Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern New York time, right? And we normally do. But yeah, if you go to the YouTube channel, I mean, we have stuff on there talking about having been led as we believe. So you can listen to that stuff on there. We're doing FAQ now, frequently asked questions. We have something talking about 12 pillars of wisdom on there. We had on the old YouTube channel, I had to redo some of the stuff, but on Facebook, we have some of this stuff like our Willie Lynch thing. You can look up the podcast and follow the podcast. We have podcast episodes that you can catch up on, and we speak on a lot of different things that we bring up from time to time. So there's tons of different ways you guys can look at Shabbat Shalom, service on 10 a.m. every Easter, whatever. So all you have to do is look at these things and you'll be able to recognize what's going on. So but yeah, it's a lot of stuff. And then being culturally contextual facts, cultural curriculum. That's really what it is. A lot of people aren't looking at the proper culture. So a lot of people are not looking at things properly as far as culture is concerned. So if we're not going to look at things properly considering culture, once again, what is proper interpretation? The definition of interpretation means you have to go by who the person was, the time period they were in, what the language they were using, what was the environment, what was the community like, what was the culture like, what did they say exactly when they said it. And we have a lot of people that are using applications as if they're interpretations. There's only one interpretation, but many applications. Problem is that people are trying to take one application and try to talk about how they interpret that application. And we got a problem that's showing up. Like how can we talk about somebody being the Alpha and the Omega, right? And that's not Aleph Bet. That's alphabet, and alphabet is based off of Aleph Bet. Why not learn what they would have said, which is I'm Aleph Atav. Aleph meaning I'm the father, the source. I'm one who has the strength of an ox, who's able to be able to pull and cultivate things. And I'm also the Tav, the one that's finished, the one that is the mark, right? The one that finishes everything, and also the one who died on the Tav, which is the cross. Aleph and Atav. Whole different thing. You think he's the A to Z or the Alpha and the Omega. But that's cultural. Sure, he's the beginning and the end, but the beginning and the end of the Aleph Bet mean a lot different than the beginning and the end of A to Z. Matter of fact, if you know how the Aleph Bet goes, you know that the letters A and B come directly from the Aleph Bet. Like A actually means something. When you take A and you put it on the side and put this in between, you have now a pictograph. That triangle is the head. The parts that go past the two lines are the ears, and then you've got the two lines at the end. That's the horns. Totally different way of looking at it. Bet, the letter B, right? You take that B. I don't even know if this is, I guess it's like this. The letter B, you put it on the side. You have the land and you have the tent of the home that comes around it. And then if you know that it's the son as well, then you know that you have the son who comes out the right family. Yeah, or even like they're talking about with baby formula shortage, go back to what we were talking about earlier, which I just heard people talking about. But I think that's a great thing because you shouldn't be having babies on baby formula anyways. First of all, baby formula is not even based off of anybody but a young white baby boy. So if you're not a young white baby boy, you're already going to be missing nutrients and you're going to develop incorrectly, which means you're going to have a bunch of disease, right? And just like we're dealing with people that we need to give them sincere milk, we're giving them formulas, right? Baby formula is one of the most, and it might have been somebody, people say that it might have been somebody with great intentions, but that old saying, the road to hell is paved with great intentions. you know, like I think baby formula is one of the most vile things to ever exist. It's loaded with fats and unnecessary fats, unhealthy sugars. It's also loaded with poisons. It's one of the most vile things to ever exist. Real talk. Baby formula, one of the most vile things to ever exist. You said, how does formula give white baby boys the right nutrients but not others? No, I said, well, first of all, it doesn't give them the right one because it's still going to be poison for them too, right? Sincere answer. It's going to be poison for them too. What I'm saying is that the formula, right, is based off of a white baby boy. So, for example, if you go to get your blood levels taken, you want to know if your blood level's too high, too low. You're looking at your glucose. You want to see if you're hyperglycemic, hypoglycemic, all these terms, right? That's based off of a white male of a certain weight and size. If you look at the female version, sometimes, a lot of times they just say, we'll just subtract this and do this, whatever, make it female. Sometimes some people might actually go off of this as a white female. But you know that everybody's body is different, right? And some tribes are going to have blood levels that are going to be different than others. So you can go somewhere and you can be looking for somebody saying, I feel sick. This happens all the time. I feel sick. I feel sick. I feel sick. And not necessarily because somebody hates you because you're black, but because somebody says, well, your blood level's fine and your heart rate is fine. And this is fine. And you're like, yeah, but I still don't feel right. Yeah, but this is fine. And this is fine. But yeah, but I'm telling you, I don't feel right. They check yourself. Look, man, you must be faking. And they give you a placebo or whatever. And they say, just go ahead and go somewhere. Right. They don't tell you it's a placebo, but they give it to you. Right. Because they think that you're making stuff up. Okay. So if you look at that the same, right, they're not basing it off of everybody. They're not saying this is how little black boys work. For example, most of these things that you're giving babies, like you have some of these shots and things that they're giving to babies. Um, all the babies are getting the same shot. Now they're putting twice the legal limit of mercury in some of these shots. Supposedly they're changing it now, but they used to do that for years and years and years. They knew that it was twice the legal limit of mercury to give a dog. They were putting in shots that they were giving to newborn babies, right? And so when they're giving them to newborn babies, um, you have to say to yourself, why would they do that, right? But now here's the deal: it affects all babies. It affects all babies. It's a terrible thing. It's a poisonous thing. You shouldn't give it to a white baby, to a brown baby, to a yellow baby, to a black baby, to a red baby. All these colors that we have, right? That we say, you shouldn't give it to any of them. That being said, black boys have more of a problem wiping. Their body has more of a problem getting out the mercury out of the brain area than any other race. I know it's a social construct, but by any other race, our boys have more of a problem than all other boys. So therefore, you're going to have an issue, especially when you start talking about autism and stuff. It's going to be higher in everybody, but it's extremely high. Percentage wise, in an extreme manner, it is higher for black boys than everybody else. This is not something I'm making up, by the way. This is not something that I just grabbed one page. This is something that a person who worked for basically, like, I know he's not part of the AHA per se. He might be, but I forget what his actual title was in whatever organization, but he actually worked for like a high place in American places, was giving this to California black boys, knew this and kept, because he was getting paid, kept doing it. And he felt guilty at one point and finally had to be protected because he came out and actually came out as a witness against the wicked system he was getting paid by to do these things, because his conscience, if you want to use that term, his conscience finally showed up. Jay Banner, what are you talking about? Where is the house that I built for you? What house am I supposed to build for you? Right? What house am I supposed to build? Why should I build you a house? What is it that you've done that requires me to build you a house? Right? But I'm talking, but see what I'm saying? Like, I have to, I have to be in a place like to where I see these things as real. Right? Like I have to see these things as real. We had to have honest conversation about it. We have to have honest conversation about it. We have to have honest conversation about it. Like we're not willing to have dialogue. Once again, like we talked about with evil, we ignore evil. We act like it doesn't exist, and then we say, "How did evil come?" You know, it was there the whole time. It didn't go anywhere just because you wanted to act like it didn't exist. It didn't go anywhere just because you wanted to act like it did not exist. It's still there. It was always there. You know, so that's what I was saying. So when you go back to the formula, even though yes, the formula is poisonous for everybody, the formula is still going to be designed based off of one particular person, and they sell it to everybody else based off of that specific design. It's like an IQ test. See what I'm saying? Like we have to start asking questions from proper culture. Like when you say, why is it that black babies, why is it that Latino babies, why is it that native babies, whatever, why is it that they can't pass these IQ tests? It must be because they're in poor neighborhoods. Anybody in a poor neighborhood does bad on an IQ test. Well, there's some truth in that, but let's be honest also too. An IQ test is based off of whose intelligence? Is the IQ test based off of black folks' intelligence? Then somebody will say, "Well, yeah, because black people don't have the same the amount of information." No, no, no. It's because we don't care about your information, right? And somebody would there's somebody out there that would try to tell you that I have bad IQ, low IQ, because I don't care about Joe Biden. So since I don't care about him, I don't care about who the Secretary of State is right now. I know how the Secretary of State works. I don't need the name. I just know who I know how it works. They have to do whatever the Secretary of State works. But they'd say I'd score low on an IQ test. But the reality is that's why some of the stuff I talk about, I have to talk about things that we talk about in the system, because some people, if you don't recognize what they think intelligence is, they'll try to tell you you're stupid. Yeah, IQ test ignores the vastness of people and their gifts. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff on the IQ test that if you're not a white male, like why would I care? You said you remember you took an IQ test in Kentucky, and one of the questions was, "Do women look better with hair down or up in the ponytail?" That made you not take it seriously. Yeah. Now, what they would say? Now, watch this. Watch this. I think I remember something about that. In all honesty, I think the reason why they even do, like, for example, if they give you an IQ test, this is what they'll say. They'll say, and it depends on whose IQ test. Now, there's a lot more different types, right? But they might do an IQ test, and they'll say, "Hey, take this paperclip." Right? They might say, "Take this paperclip," and or they'll say, "What can you do with the paperclip?" So you might be sitting there being like, "With an IQ, certain IQ tests will be like, well, you take papers and you put them together and you make sure that the clip keeps them together, and that's blah blah blah." Right? Now, somebody else though might have a test where they'd actually give you points if you think out what they say outside the box, which is what, like, okay, I can take this paper clip and I can do, I can attach it to a kite and it can do this. I can take this paper clip and I can make it a weapon. I can take this paper clip and do blah blah blah. Right? Because different intelligence shows different things. Somebody else takes a paper clip, you might not like it as intelligence, but it is. Where somebody can take a paper clip and they can say, "Oh, I'm gonna take this paper clip and I'm gonna say that I can, I can use it to pick a lock." That's intelligence. It's information. It's not might not be information you like, but it's information, right? What if somebody says, "I can take that paper clip and I can use it to be able to carve out on a wall Yahweh's name," right? Yeah, so I can make it a key. Doesn't even have to be pick a lock. I can make it a key, right? What if somebody says, I can take the paper clip and I can be able to use it to be a nail, and I can, like we take pins, I can take it on walls, especially walls that are softer, and I can pin it into the wall, and I can actually hang papers or pictures with it. But somebody who says no, you can only use it as a paper clip, they say you don't have intelligence if you answer like that, right? Somebody going back to the ponytail thing, somebody says, does the ponytail look better if it's up or if it's down? What if you don't, like, and you say, okay, well, I guess a ponytail is something that, I guess looks better if it's up, right? And they say, oh, no, you know what? We like it if it's down. We like it down. So therefore your intelligence isn't that great. And that's how intelligence levels work. That's where our questions come from. Going back to what we were talking about, all these questions and everything we're talking about and considering, right? These questions that we're giving, I want us to start thinking about questions from cultural perspective. I want us to start looking at, why is it that you even think that's a question? Right? Ask yourself, ladies, why is it a question as to if you should wear your natural hair or not to be able to go for an interview? Right? Ask yourself, what culture has you even asking that question? Said, do I think homeschool or public school is best for developing little ones' minds? I believe that it should be homeschool, but I believe it should be homeschool in groups. You're allowed mothers to come together and homeschool together, fathers to come together and homeschool together, parents to come together and homeschool together, children to come together and homeschool together. Matter of fact, you get to a certain age, you can allow your children to go and play sports and do all that stuff at the schools. Homeschool doesn't have to be exactly what people tell us, but yeah, I think that, yeah, but it comes back to culture. Where's your land? What gives you the time to do this? How can you be able to make sure this happens? Can we support each other to where it can happen? That's part of the deal. So everyone should be able to be comfortable with how the Most High made them. Most deaf. And we need one for us. Yeah, like, so everybody, like, you have to ask yourself, why is that? You have to ask yourself, why is it that what makes a suit and tie better than your tunic or your dashiki or your dashiki print, etc. Your chemise. What makes your what makes your what makes their suit and tie better than your clothing? That's intelligence. Whose intelligence? The questions that we got to start asking, who even put a culture together. The questions that we have are coming because somebody put a culture together that has you question yourself. If I'm always at the end, if every question is always, why do I have to make sure I wear a suit and tie even if I don't like a suit and tie? Because suits and ties, they come from ancient ways of being able to do stuff, right? This tie is supposed to represent if somebody went to war and they got their neck cut, and they would wrap a bandage around it. That's why ties are there. And you like, and we like tight ties. We don't like loose ties. If you do loose ties, you're supposed to be relaxing. But if you got a tight tie, you're ready to go to war. That's what that comes from. you know if you're wearing your if you need cufflinks, that's something that was worn by royalty and stuff. You didn't go out there, if you're wearing your matter of fact, your cuffs and everything, they used to be frilly and stuff like that. You might even stuff them in if you had stuff in there, or if you had it in your handkerchief. A lot of people had handkerchiefs because nobody took any kind of baths or showers or had any deodorant or anything. So you would just hold something over your nose because everybody smelled bad, especially because of what they ate. They sweated it out, all types of stuff. Nobody, did anything as far as actually making sure. So you do that. You take out your handkerchief and you wear it. Sometimes you had some cocaine. So you take out your stuff that would now do is cufflinks. You take it out and they're not cufflinks, but your cuff. You would take it out and you sniff, you put it back in. Like, everything you're wearing is for a reason, right? Your pantalones, your pants, right? That was something that you wore. And nobody even used to wear those things, but then they started wearing those things specifically. And if you look at them, they were really tight, or they were stuff that's supposed to give away. It was supposed to be stuff that like made you look a certain way, especially because men were designing clothes for men, and usually the same way nowadays. Gay men were designing clothes for other men, right? And for women as well. Just like ladies, you're wearing high heel shoes today. Why do you wear high heels today? Because men used to wear high heels in Greece. And so women got tired of men that were going after little boys that were dressed like half man, half goat. That's why they had them things up there to have those hooves or those toes be pointed the same way. So women started wearing them. Now we think of high heels as being feminine, don't even realize they're masculine. And by the way, a lot of women that deal with problems, with their ovaries and stuff, they've linked it to the fact that they wear high heel shoes, right? Stuff we've talked about before. But I'm just trying to say these things that we're questioning, I want you to start questioning from culture. Thanks, babe. Yeah, my wife even says everything is culture, from even your religion and science. From religion and science, it's culture, right? Why does medicine have to have side effects? That's cultural because I need to own it, even if it gives you side effects. Because medicine's not supposed to have side effects, not if it's natural. Now, I'm not saying you can't take too much of something and it not be poisonous or something like that, but that's why you know what natural medicine to take and what things are. Yeah, new understanding of that power tie being red for sure, right? That power tie. Why is that power tie tied around your neck? It's got to be red. Why does that give you power? Blood is power. You said, why did they start public school? So we're getting close to the end. We got to get ready to take our leave. So I can't stay here too much longer. We'll be back tomorrow, or we'll be back tonight. Actually, 8 p.m. Eastern New York time. We'll be back tomorrow, 8 a.m. Eastern New York time. Today is Friday, right? Yeah. So we'll be back tomorrow. And actually we'll have class tonight. My wife be teaching introduction to herbalism. So please, everybody, make sure you're on tonight. But we'll be back on, and then she'll be back on for Shabbat Shalom podcast with her mom, I believe, if I remember the schedule correctly. So yeah, but why did they start public schools? Real quick. Thomas Jefferson, at least is what you know, is public schools today. Thomas Jefferson started those for the most part. And he said that we needed to start those to make sure. This is what he said. Because remember, nobody was really going to school like that anyways. And then people that went to school, they were just kind of paid. They paid their way to go to school. Most of their knowledge they got from their parents or from people that their parents paid to give them certain things on the side. So degrees really didn't matter and stuff like that, like we think of nowadays. Thomas Jefferson came along and said, look, we're going to have certain people that don't go to school anyways. Their parents won't be able to afford it, or they're going to be slaves, or they're just going to always be low-class citizens, so bump them. So they didn't get schooled at all. Then after that, he said, okay, we're going to need people to know things on an elementary basis. They still basically will be slaves, but they'll have a little bit more knowledge. They'll feel like they're better than everybody else, but they'll learn, so they'll learn what we want them to learn, and they'll think they're better, and we'll tell them that it makes them better in society. So they did that. After that, there really wasn't a middle school or anything back then. You kind of went to secondary school. Secondary school was like, we're going to give you a lot more knowledge. You'll make maybe a few more pennies to somebody who doesn't have the degree, but you're really still going to be in a position where you don't have much, right? And so they did that. After that, then he said we'll have a level, and we have a level in between that now called somebody help me, the 2-year degree. I forget the 2-year degree, but he said after that you'll have the bachelor's degree, right? And the bachelor's degree that says that we'll give that to who? To bachelors. They didn't think that associate's degree. Thank you. So you get the associate's degree. That's something that's new now. That wasn't really there back then. But now it's like saying I'm an associate to these people. So I really don't have a full education. I've kind of got like I'm an associate. I'm kind of sort of like friends with education, or I'm like an associate. I'm not really somebody who's upper echelon, but I'm an associate of people who kind of have some stuff, right? So it might get me in some doors. Then he said we'll have a bachelor's degree. A bachelor's degree was what? For eligible bachelors, and women were not considered to have rights. So that was for men, young white men, right? So you can get a bachelor's degree if you can afford one. After that, then he said that, you get a master's. Now, what does a master do? A master is supposed to teach. So a master who's been raised in the system of education, they will teach other people to do exactly what it is that we want them to do. And then you have on top of that, you have a doctorate. A doctor is supposed to be somebody who's supposed to be at a level where they can actually write out new ways of making sure that the masters can teach what the bachelors are going to live, that the people who are associates will pine to be, so that the people who have secondary education will think that they're a little higher than the people who really don't have much more than slaves, but think they're higher than the slaves, not realizing they're slaves themselves with that elementary stuff, not realizing that basically you're in the same boat as the person that has no degree or education, so to speak, in the first place. So that's kind of what we use as the format. And if you think about it, like it's the same thing you're using. It's factory setting to slave stuff. When you went to when slaves were children, they let the children got to hang around their parents all day until they were old enough to be able to be a slave for the child of the master, right? You know that, right? So, and I'm sorry we're going a little bit over. I promise we're going to take our leave soon, as I got stuff to take care of and stuff to do today, just like everybody else does. But you know when I got to be obedient. You know when the master, he used to let the little kindergarten, preschool, young child stay around the parent as a slave, and so they got to play somewhat, but they also were always around the parent, right? And they saw that that's one day I'm getting ready for that, right? They got like just like your child gets to see you go to work and everything, but they kind of get to play and stuff, you know. And then they go to preschool and they really not learning too much, they really get to play, but they're watching everybody around them kind of be in the system. And then they go to kindergarten. In kindergarten, they're not even really focused on your learning outside of maybe your ABCs and numbers 1 through 100 or something like that, possibly. But then you're pretty much learning like get ready to listen, take your naps, don't play as much as what you did in preschool. Why? Because now you're going to get the first grade, first through sixth. When you get the first grade, you pretty much get a rude awakening, especially by the time you get the second and third grade, where, um, if you look at that, the second and third grade, you will discover that um, that basically by then everybody's got low clerical, um, is doing low clerical work. You're being taught to do secretarial stuff and to learn the system. Why? Well, you come in, you're a factory worker, you're a slave, right? You come in, you might have a bell that rings so that everybody knows school's starting. You have to be quiet. You sit down at the desk, right? You're not supposed to do anything but sit down at the desk. Don't talk to anybody. Don't do anything. Just look at the board. That's all you're supposed to do. They're getting you ready for the plantation. They're getting you ready for factories. They're getting you ready for those things. There and they do break drown creativity. A lot of people don't know if you test the average child. I'm talking about the average child. The average child is going to test as a genius before they start going to school. Did you know that? If you test a bunch of children like ages 2 to 3, they're going to come up as geniuses. They're going to be like, wow, these children test really high, almost all of them. And then they get to like kindergarten and it drops significantly. Like, you get to like the 84 percentile. And then you get, and I don't remember all the percentiles, so I'm gonna stop there. But you get to like the 80s, and then you get to first through sixth grade, and it drops a whole lot less, especially in boys, because boys are very active, and boys like to be challenged because they're challenging. They challenge each other, and so boys really struggle as far as stuff like that, right? Girls struggle as well, right? Don't get it twisted, but boys really struggle in like second, third grade, especially first grade, second grade, third grade. Then you get to middle school, and then don't you talk about high school. High school, by that time, most people, even if they're going to pass with a C or a B, most children are not even considered to be anything close to a genius, right? At that point, like you had to have people that had a lot of stuff happening outside of school that helped them to be able to still have a certain mindset, right? But that's why when it comes to homeschooling, people that live off the plantation, right? And they're able to homeschool children that don't get trained on the plantation, they actually do better. We know for a fact that if you want to see who colleges look for, if a college sees that you're homeschooled, they'll actually look at you harder because they'll be like, because the numbers show that people that come out of being homeschooled and go to colleges, they kill the game. They get all the highest grades, right? Um, Obviously I'm talking about averages. I'm not saying because there are people that don't homeschool correctly either, but you'll find that a lot of people they out there who are homeschooled, they do better in college than everybody else. And people be like, well, how do they do better in college? They're going to a place and they have to learn what it is to be an adult and blah blah. It's like, well, if you were around adults all day. When people say, well, that's bad because what about them? They have to have friends and they have to make sure they do this or whatever. It's like when you become an adult, you realize you don't need 500 friends anyways. Matter of fact, you never had 500 friends. So why would you teach your child to have 500 friends and they never liked them in the first place? Why would you have your child be around people that bully them? If I take my child to the playground and there's a bully there, guess what? I show up in the bully's face. And I teach my child not to hang around people that are like that. And if somebody says something that's despicable to my child, I say in front of the child's parent to the child that you will never talk to my child like that again. Sometimes I'm passive aggressive with it. Sometimes I'll be talking to him and I'll be like, yo, well, this child, you're gonna be dealing with people, you're gonna meet people, and know, Solomon, that you're gonna meet people that are terrible human beings to other ones. They don't treat people with respect. And I'll say it like that while the child's standing there, and I'll say it while the parents standing there. Because I want them to know that, like, your child is trash. Like get them do better. I'm sorry, your child ain't trash. Your child will become trash if you don't help them do better. Let me be careful with my words, right? But I'm just saying, like, so homeschooling, is something completely different than public schooling. My son's learning several languages. I was talking with my wife about this the other day when because of the area, even though we travel all the time, because of the area that we officially have him homeschooled in the state that he falls under, they try to do the test and everything. Some places they don't even care, but they make you do a test from time to time. Not him, but they basically see what have you been teaching them and stuff like that, and you have to present it. And I'm looking, I'm like, man, when I was in school, and I know about babies that go to school, I was like, they don't ask for the stuff that they're asking about on his level, but they're honest sometimes. Sometimes we'll be like, oh, well, he did this and he learned this and he speaks this and blah, blah, this and that. And they'll go, oh, right? Because they're surprised that he's learning about those things. Oh, he went here. Oh, he went to this place. Oh, he speaks this. Oh, he knows Alpha. Oh, he knows Hebrew. Oh, he knows modern. Well, now I learning modern Hebrew too, thanks to mama. I don't really know it. But he knows modern Hebrew because thanks to mama, he knows French, and he knows English, and mom does most of the stuff too, but he does kung fu, he blah blah blah. Oh, okay, cool. So he's getting more of the activity. Everybody, okay, he goes to the playground, he does this and blah blah. Like, he gets more than the average child, and he doesn't even comprehend it. Sometimes he'll come, oh, I can't believe you guys won't let me do, and blah. It's like, boy, if you don't be quiet. It's like, if you comprehended that these little boys are going to school and they got to sit at the desk all day, and you sitting up here learning while dancing at the same time. You know what I'm saying? But we're so busy comparing cultures. That's why I'm glad that we're able to tell them and show them, and like to teach him, like, hey, there's a lot of boys that aren't doing what you're doing. Like, there's a lot of boys. My wife said exactly. We tell him he'll be somewhere. Well, we're not millionaires and blah blah. It's like, sir, do you comprehend that you're eating at a fine restaurant right now? Like, people are serving you, and people are ensuring that you get stuff and you eat stuff, like, stuff about people's culture and stuff through their food that people could only imagine. Yeah, my wife says she tries to explain to them that writing a couple sentences is not manual labor, right? But it's like, you comprehend that. Do you comprehend that you get to learn, by viewing? Do you comprehend that you have two, that your parents both get to sit around and talk to you and teach you during your school experience? You wish he doesn't comprehend how many parents wish that they could teach their own children. And we believe that you could, but we got to change some of the things that we do. And that he's never going to have a 9 to 5, and that he's never going to have to worry about rent. And the time has long been done since he's had to be worry about parents who were paying rent. And even when we were paying rent in the apartment that he was growing up in, he doesn't even realize that, like, we didn't even have to do that. We just chose to still do it. He had a mother that's a great provider. He has a father that's a great provider. You know what I'm saying? But it's about culture. And these children are growing up in a culture where they think that if they don't act like white children on YouTube, that they're not right. Or we're about a culture like Kendrick called out. I know it's not on the album, but the one that he did with the where he the Heart Five, when he said, I don't want any part of that culture. If that's what the culture is, if the culture is going to have me looking like Nipsey Hussle, then I refuse to be a part of it anymore. You said you had to pay homeschooling association each year and turn in the credits you graduated last year 4.0. There you go. Right? And there's a lot of stuff that she probably learned that doesn't even show up on those tests. That's the greatest thing about homeschool. Because look, we got to get ready to take our leave. I'll say this: Holy Spirit said we got to wrap it up. So I'm be obedient to what she says. When you're dealing with homeschooling, they learn a whole bunch of stuff outside of what they just learned in the school experience. And I'm gonna tell you, lust issues, things like that. I learned stuff like that outside of the stuff that was on paper, right? I learned a lot of stuff that I shouldn't have learned from a lot of people that didn't even do what they swore they were teaching me. All these guys talking about how much sex they were having and everything. I never did, but and I didn't have sex. I didn't, but it was like you still learning. You said you homeschooled for 8th and 9th grade. When he went back, he already knew most everything. 10th was teaching. Yeah. You said you've been working with Destin and he knows more at 3 than his older cousins do who are already in school. Yeah. Yeah, or you do field trips with homeschoolers. Exactly. So it's coming out of the system, but it's great to be around them. I love it when our children meet and they come together. We tried to start doing stuff for them on Zoom. It still hasn't worked out, and we're still working possibly on trying to get that stuff together at some point. But even just letting these babies talk to each other. Like if you don't want your baby around somebody that's cussing or whatever, like let them talk to somebody that's part of the community. Like that's one of the reasons why some of this stuff is once again so valuable. You know, it's just a way that's there. Yeah, another thing, they're not worried about dressing like everybody else, and they don't have to have the uniform, or they don't have to worry about, I can't afford the same Jordans that you can afford, for the first day of school and all that foolishness, even though their parents can't really afford it either. you know. It's just a lot of things that come there, and it shows them a lot of. They're going to end up being more mature. I'm going to say, and I'm done after this. I promise. We take our leave. Thank you for being on a lot longer than we usually would be. However, let me just say this, and we'll take our leave. Even that friendship piece, man. The fact that my son has a comprehension that I don't have to have 7,000 people around me in order to be considered a cool person. That's going to be one of the biggest things ever. Like that's one of the things that the hardest things for me to deal with, to try to unlearn, is like, like, hey, I got to deal with, I used to have to be around these people. I used to have this many friends, or I would be the token and let people talk bad about me and my culture and my hair and everything, and make me feel bad about myself because of the color of my skin and stuff. And I'd sit there and laugh about it because, hey, I got to have friends, but with friends like that, who needs enemies, right? So, anyways, hopefully we were able to show some things. I don't know. I think we answered a few questions today, but I think I was just trying to get across today that prayerfully it was done so in a manner that was pleasing to the Most High. That culture is something that needs to be brought to these discussions with questions, comments, concerns. If we start thinking that way culturally, correctly, we'll be able to have better comprehension and conversation. So we thank you. We appreciate you all for being on today. We appreciate the King, Queen, and each and every one of you. As always, we ask that you study and meditate on this word, and pray about it, fast, whatever you need to do, so you can be hearers as well as doers. We give all praise and honor to Yahweh Elohim. We give all praise and honor to him once again for my wife, the Honorable Maya, who lives a life that's able to be honored. She will be teaching tonight, 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern New York time, for those that are going to be taking introduction into herbalism. So we're thankful and grateful for everybody for that. If you're somebody who's been talking about, hey, apprenticeship and all this, maybe it's something that you look up and look into and see, what you can gather from it. But that'll be at 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern New York time. I'll be back at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern New York time for another live in the evening. We'll see you guys tomorrow, 8 a.m. Eastern New York time, followed by Maya and her mother, or the Honorable Maya and her mother, Sister Ro, being on at 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern New York time for our Shabbat Shalom service, followed by a weekly meeting that's just going to be some fun we're going to have, 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern New York time. That'll be on Zoom only. So we look forward to seeing you guys for all that. I know that's a lot, but seeing you guys for all that, spending some time together as a fam. We hope and pray that you guys are doing well. We hope and pray that you guys are, all the prayers and everything that's been out and stuff in this transition. We just finished the fast last night. Hopefully you guys were praying concerning some things as far as transition, maybe some ideas you might have to be able to help us and bless us. We know people are talking about doing things in multiple places. We're really excited and really honestly looking for showing up at these places. If you guys say we have stuff and you guys are willing to grow stuff with us and help us to be able to do some things, we're looking at doing that. I was asked by Minister Morel again about the music piece, so we got to basically it's up. I just got to make sure that it's easy for you guys to get to or whatever once you guys pay your or give your donations and things of that nature. But we do have music for you guys to be able to look at specifically and things like that. So we're excited about that. If you're looking for life coaching, marital coaching, one-on-one sessions, all that stuff, you're looking for information on classes, whatever it is. If you're on YouTube right now, you can just look it up in the description box. If you're on TikTok, once again, go to where it says bio that has a little bit of stuff on our main page that has a little bit of stuff about us. For a lot more stuff, click on where it says website, go to our link tree, click on any of the stuff that you want information on, or ways to give, or ways to do stuff, or ways to take classes, whatever, whether it be donations. Some of you give offerings, some of you even give tithes, things of that nature. Some of you even bless other people in the businesses to buy things for other people. Whatever it is that you like to do, we're thankful and grateful, and we appreciate you all for all of those things. So we are appreciative of you. Don't forget those that are in Chicago. We'll be there 27, 28. Those are in Detroit. We'll be there the 29th and 30th. And everybody, don't forget June 5th, right around the corner. We're going to come together for a celebration. There'll be a brief word, but we're going to kind of celebrate and just chill out with each other. Maybe have some stuff, some music or something playing in the background while we're having a discussion. Who knows? But, we're just going to come together and say hello and spend time, and get a nice little word and stuff like that. Don't forget October 14th through the 16th is coming up, right? So we're asking you guys, we've been asking for months and months and months, even before this year, can you save up to about 300? And that way we're trying to get it down to about 150, but we're trying our best to make sure that we stay in there. That doesn't include, obviously, if you're gonna do hotel costs and stuff like that, that you would need for 2 days or whatever. So maybe you're looking at 400 to 500, but everything should be taken care of and things like that. So we'll have more information for you on that soon. And I think I've given just about all the announcements I can. Thank you very much. Oh, fellas, brothers, don't forget our monthly meeting for the men is going to be this Saturday coming up as well, 7:00 p.m. Eastern New York time. All right. So thank you so much. We appreciate you so much. We honor the king and queen in each and every one of you. And as always, this has been Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant of Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time by being a voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken until I have the great privilege, opportunity, and responsibility of being in front of you all again. Please remember, as always, yesterday, that you are loved, you're necessary, you're majestic, you're fearfully, wonderfully made, and you, which is all of us working together, we shall be the reason why people who are in this system no longer have to be of it. Shalom, family. And in case I don't see you before tomorrow, an early Shabbat Shalom to each and every one of you. Peace.